How about our sound? We're on right now.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Smith Radio. You're listening to a live special edition of Smith Radio just before the election. We're here to give you all the facts and figures, everything that's going on right now at the breaking news on Sunday evening. We're going to touch on some things that happened last week during the week, stuff that dropped on Friday, Saturday, and like I said again, breaking news Sunday. You can listen to us live every Sunday evening from 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to be a part of the show, give a shout out, give a call in, 513-888-1538. If you want to join the live message board, you can go to smithradio.info. That'll take you directly to our Spreaker page where you can listen live. And if you click on messages, you'll be able to message us live as the show goes on. There's a lot of things. We got some special guests today. Gary Byrne, the author of Crisis of Character. He's going to be on. We recorded him. We taped him earlier this afternoon, and we're going to play that interview this tonight on the show. Also,
Trevor Loundon.
An incredible Trevor Loundon. You've got to see this movie. If you are an Amazon Prime subscribe, if you have Amazon Prime, go to Amazon. You can watch this movie for free.
It's The Enemies Within. The Enemies Within.
And if you type his name in Amazon, Trevor, L-O-U, he's right there. Right there on Amazon, his book and his documentary. Like I said, again, if you're a Prime user or a Prime member on Amazon, you can watch the documentary for free on Amazon. And what is the documentary about? That documentary is about communism, live and well. It never died. We never killed it. It is here. It has been here. The Democrat Party has been hijacked. The Democrat Party is, the entire party is the card-carrying member party of the communist regime. It's just shocking. When you see the movie or the documentary, you will be blown away. So we've got to vote Trump. You've got to get the vote out. You've got to talk to all your friends and your family. Be positive about it. I told my wife, I said, she's like, well, what do I say to my friends? You know, they're all, they don't want to hear about politics or anything. I said, well, just bring up all the crime that Hillary Clinton is involved in.
Or the satanic cult.
Yeah, the dinners.
Somebody's cooking something, like spirits or something. I don't know, spirit cooking. So we got to talk about that in this episode. We're also going to talk about breaking news. FBI, James Comey, FBI director, decided to renege on his opening up and possibly, it was a head fake. It was a Hillary Clinton DNC paid for head fake, which was sniffed out by Rush Limbaugh. I'll give him full credit for it. He was the one that said that this is probably a head fake, and turns out he was exactly right, and that's that. And we'll talk about that. That's breaking news. That's so breaking that we were about to go on live, and then I saw that.
We were doing the interview with Gary Byrne.
Yeah, we were talking about we did the interview with him moments ago, asking him about the new indictment, and now we find out that Comey reneged on it because it was going to make us look bad to react to it, to get all excited about the 650,000 emails, and he knew it. The Democrats knew it. It turned out to be a big head fake, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. There's a lot of experts out there, a lot of people that do political punditry on a weekly basis that are all saying that either it's not going to work at all or it may even backfire on them. It's just going to make people even more upset that we have a party in power, a group of people in power, Satan worshipers, if you will, who are never going to see justice. They're going to continue to go and have these sex escapades with toddlers and schoolgirls on desert islands or private islands outside the jurisdiction of everybody because they're billionaires and they can get away with it and they can do whatever they want and disregard laws altogether because they never apply to them and they never will. As long as you keep electing them, this is how it's going to be. And just hope and pray that if you have a daughter or a son, presumably there's probably boys there, that they don't get kidnapped and shipped off to Orgy Island. That's all I got to say about that. But yeah, we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff. So that's what kind of show we have in store for today. The election, this is the last show we're going to do, Sunday show, before the election. Brian has his morning show. I hope you guys are watching that every morning, or listening to it, I should say. I keep saying watch it, like we're on TV. We will be soon, but...
See, Tuesday's election day, I will probably do a short show Tuesday morning. But the big thing is to get out and vote. Get your friends out there and vote. Get your family out and vote. It's so overwhelming right now. And I understand where everybody's coming from because we're hearing this from all our friends and all our family because they're like, oh, so you're going to do this? You're going to talk about this? If we talked about everything y'all wanted to talk about.
We try, though. We have a lot of time on this show, and we try to get to everything. But I'm going to tell you right now, we have had many shows where as soon as it's over, we sit back and relax and unwind for a couple minutes, and then Brian or me will say, oh, we forgot to talk about X, Y, or Z.
We didn't even talk about that yet.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
But the whole thing with you were talking about kidnapping children. This WikiLeaks.
I mean, they got to get them from somewhere, right? Where do you think these children come from?
WikiLeaks has been so absolutely incredible in getting the word out. We'll play the interview with Gary Byrne, and I'm not the first one to come up with this. I actually heard chatter on the internet when Comey dropped the FBI investigation back in July. I heard chatter that the FBI agents all recommended to indict her on both, on the Clinton Foundation and on her email. And so Comey did an about face and didn't take their advice and walked away from it. And the FBI agents had another avenue they were going to use. And I didn't know what that was, and I never heard anything. Come to find out, it's really loud chatter on the internet now that FBI agents have been leaking this information to WikiLeaks. Is that I mean,
I don't know.
I'm looking at what you're watching.
I got Antoine Dobson on.
Play.
Do you want me to cue him up? Yeah. All right.
So we're
Antoine Dodson was sleeping on his sister's couch when he heard a scream from her bedroom.
Seeing my sister, when I walked in, he had his hands around her neck. And first thing was to pull him off of her. And that's what I did.
The attacker climbed on the ledge of Dodson's unit, slid the window open, went straight to Kelly Dodson's room, and crawled in beside her. Look at the attacker's face.
He was about 5'9", 5'10", coffee complexion. He had a low cut like a Caesar with some little waves in his head. Clean cut, very smooth face. Well, obviously we have a rapist in Lincoln Park. He's climbing in your windows. He's snatching your people up, trying to rape them. So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here.
Are you...
So anyway... No, that's like what we have running for office right now.
Right.
Is a guy that Antoine Dobson
is screaming
would be really upset about. Seriously.
So this whole thing down in Haiti and the children and the rape and the kidnapping, Hillary Clinton had a friend that has a nonprofit organization. Hillary Clinton actually helped to fund her nonprofit organization, SISLBY, Silsby, that's her last name. And Hillary Clinton had helped raise money for her nonprofit back in 2001. So she's been in contact with this woman for years and years and years. She sends this woman to Haiti to help the children, but she actually helped in a different way. She had 33 of them that they were going to kidnap and probably take to Pedophile Island.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it was Hillary, but somebody told Bill Clinton, you need to go to Haiti and put the fire out of this thing, because the kidnapping was coming to play. It was coming to light.
Wow. Yikes. It's amazing. When you think about an island full of sex slaves that are children, I mean, I have a young child. It doesn't take long for him to grow up, and this has been going on for decades. That means they have to keep replenishing this island with new sex slaves.
Right.
So this is like, it's got to be a big industry to keep this thing going. I mean, we're talking the kind of victimization that should just make you sick. And that doesn't even include the spirit cooking thing, which apparently is somehow related or something. There's somebody was reporting a picture of Lady Gaga with a child who, when you use other pictures and you compare the outfit that they have, Lady Gaga's wearing and what she looks like, that this picture with a child was taken during a spirit cooking event.
I'm just, and you're like, spirit cooking, what's that?
Oh my gosh.
It's got no legs.
I actually have that.
Okay, while you're queuing up, I want to make the connection between spirit cooking,
Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Sorry about that.
And child kidnapping, pedophile island, Lolita Express, all this is all wrapped in sex, demonic. It's just everything. If you take a husband and a wife and sex, that's God's gift to those two people. It's his gift to those two people. What the Democrats, what evil people, what bad people do is they destroy that good, happy sex thing, and they just run rampant. It's like somebody with alcohol and just going raging alcoholic. And they've gone headlong into a bridge abutment, and they have literally crashed. So all of this is all intertwined.
They've gotten to the point where it doesn't even occur to them. They've lost sight of what if the public found out about this?
Right? They don't even care.
And now, well, they didn't care, but now that it's happening, they're all like, oh, it's like cockroaches. You turn the light on and they're like, oh, somebody turned the light on, just totally shocking them. But so spirit cooking, we're going to get to the Gary Byrne interview. And the reason we interviewed him is because of an incident in Reno with Donald Trump. And we want to make sure that you guys are keyed up and ready to go for that. And so we're going to get to the interview. But we talk about the spirit cooking thing. We promised everybody that we would shed some light on this. So Paul Joseph Watson made a video explaining what this spirit cooking is, and I'm gonna go ahead and play it for you just to get you guys up to speed. You can actually watch this video. You can watch this video on Paul Joseph Watson's channel on YouTube. I highly recommend that. But here it is.
Attends weird occult dinner parties where blood, semen and breast milk are used in ritualistic ceremonies. No, this isn't a fake news story, it's absolutely real. And there you were thinking Podesta's UFO obsession was his weirdest hobby. In an email dated June 28, 2015, performance artist Maria Abramovich wrote to Podesta's brother Tony and said, "I'm so looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner at my place. Do you think you will be able to let me know if your brother is joining?" Tony Podesta then forwarded the email to John Podesta, asking him, "Are you in NYC Thursday, July the 9th? Marina wants you to come to dinner." Here's Marina inviting Podesta directly. So what is spirit cooking? It's basically a Wiccan ceremony where blood is used to create some form of art as a sacrament to occult beliefs. This video shows Abramovich mixing together thickly congealed blood as the recipe for the painting, which is comprised of the words, "With a sharp knife cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand, eat the pain." Spirit cooking is also an occult practice used during sex cult rituals, as explained in the book Spirit Cooking with Essential Aphrodisiac Recipes. According to Maria Abramovich, if the ritual is performed in an art gallery, it's merely art. But if the ritual is performed privately, as it was with the Podestas, then it represents an intimate spiritual ceremony. Here's Abramovich posing with a goat's head dripping in blood, a representation of the occult symbol Baphomet, which is used by numerous secret societies like Freemasonry and the Knights Templar. Here she is at a spirit cooking event with Lady Gaga, eating something with a spoon that's smeared all over the body of a mock corpse. Here she is with a pentagram carved into her stomach. But townhall.com says that all this is perfectly normal and we just all need to calm down. So how is Hillary tied to all this insane weirdness? Well, for one, Podesta is her campaign chairman and they move in the same circles. Maria Abramovich was invited to Hillary's campaign launch, and Hillary herself is also known to be into bizarre paranormal practices. Clinton used to hold seances in the White House to try and contact dead people like Eleanor Roosevelt and Mahatma Gandhi. Bill Clinton's book also talks about how him and Hillary used to participate in voodoo rituals in Haiti. Hillary's mentor is Saul Alinsky, who in his book Rules for Radicals praises Lucifer. Should it really surprise us that FBI agents refer to Hillary Clinton as the Antichrist? How did the Clinton campaign respond to the spirit cooking scandal? They blamed Vladimir Putin. Yes, they actually blamed Vladimir Putin.
That's Vladimir.
That's Vlad laughing.
And if you thought that was weird enough, I haven't even talked about the accusations of child trafficking and pedophilia, which some claim is coded into the Podesta emails under the guise of types of food. This is some serious Bohemian Grove, eyes wide shut, satanic style malarkey.
That's what I was
Would you
thinking.
really want these kind of people in control of the nuclear codes? So John Podesta, Hillary's top guy, likes to engage in occult rituals involving pig's blood, semen, and urine, while Donald Trump likes to eat ice cream. But according to the media, who have refused to cover this story, Donald Trump is the weird, creepy, dangerous one. So Trump talked about pussy 10 years ago, and that was a national scandal. Clinton campaign insiders involved in satanic rituals as of last year. Meh, who cares?
So before I forget this, we played a soundbite of, and it was a couple of years ago, where Bill Clinton was having a press conference or whatnot, and he was talking about his wife Hillary running, and he made the comment that Hillary channels Eleanor Roosevelt. Do you remember that soundbite?
I think I do remember that.
And
yeah.
I was like, man, you got to hear this. And you're like, what? What did he say? I said, yes. Bill Clinton just said his wife talks to Eleanor Roosevelt.
I do remember that. We had a show about that.
Yeah. So this all confirms.
This is right there. It's right there.
Put all the pieces of the puzzle together. All of this is really real. It's really going down. And it's just, it's letting the devil run the show. Literally.
Almost literally. Or maybe it was devil's surrogate.
Well, she's going to be channeling her leader.
Are you calling Eleanor Roosevelt a Satan worshiper?
Not her.
Well, then why would she bring her up?
Because Hillary has to go through the devil to get to her.
So she is
Channeling
in hell? Is
somebody.
Eleanor Roosevelt in hell? I don't know. Well, anyway, so interesting. So that's spirit cooking, and all of our top Democrat leaders and all of their staff members and all that seem to be heavily entrenched in all this kind of stuff. It's important that you know that. There's a lot of friends of mine that are involved in media and volunteering for the Trump organization and all this kind of stuff. And they're really disturbed by the Satan worshiping, and they should be, because when you think of Satan worshiping, the last thing you think of is that this is who runs our country. That's really disturbing. It's scary, very scary. And I was telling Brian the other day, it feels, I totally was reminiscent of Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, well, and I made the comment that if you've ever seen it, it wasn't as popular, but it was out there. It's called 8mm, and
I have to see it again. I saw it one time, like when it first came out.
Nicolas Cage in it, and
Yeah.
he was supposed to help and uncover stuff, and what he uncovered was just gruesome sexual stuff, all on 8mm film.
Basically, here, most people seen Eyes Wide Shut. This is what I got to say to you people that will just make you understand what we're dealing with. In a Hillary Clinton or any Democrat establishment or Republican establishment presidency, you have to have the password, just like you needed to have the password in order to have access to any kind of power. Other than that, you're just a peon that funds their illegal, and free activities. They're free. They have no laws that they have to adhere to in any way, shape, or form. When they want to do something, and let me tell you something, if they had good intentions at heart, then maybe doing whatever they want is okay. But when you have these issues where pedophilia is a major problem that you have, then when the laws don't apply to you, that becomes a major problem. And that's exactly what they're doing. Any little vice that they have, any little issue, anything they want to do, there are no restrictions. And in fact, there are things set up for them to make it happen, and they get to do it because they have the password and you don't. So you have to, no matter what your issues are, you are going to adhere to the law or be punished accordingly, unlike them. And Comey proved that today, Comey proved that. So anyway, so getting to the news story. So was it yesterday? It was yesterday. Donald Trump was in Reno.
Right.
And it looked like any other Donald Trump rally. There were a lot of supporters there, very, very crowded. Somebody made his way to the front at some point and decided to cause a disturbance. He wanted his 2 seconds of fame. And some sort of a scuffle or melee ensued. You can see this video on our Twitter feed, or you could just search it on Google and find the Reno incident. And for the first time of all the little protests that happened at all of his rallies, it looks like the Secret Service had to rush him off stage, even when he was in Dayton and the guy hopped over the fence.
Oh, right.
All they did was surround him.
Yeah.
They surrounded him real quick, and that's all they did. They didn't rush him off stage, but they surrounded him.
In Dayton, the backdrop of the stage in Dayton was his aircraft, and it was the tarmac.
Mm-hmm.
So
he was in a hangar. Right.
So the only way to get him off and away might have been a little bit more difficult, I would think.
Yeah, what they ended up doing on Dayton might have been the standard operating procedure for that. But so this happened to Donald. They rushed him off stage. He came back, and we decided, well, we needed an expert analysis and opinion of this. So we decided to give good old Gary Byrne, who was a Secret Service agent for many years during the Bill Clinton presidency. And it was a Freudian slip, and it was not accidental. That actually was a Freudian slip. She was for a while there actually running the country,
and they told her, "You need to back off." And at least Bill Clinton needs to look more like he's involved,
right? And then that's when she had to back up. But anyway, here's our interview with Gary Byrne. On the line, we have Gary Byrne, the author of Crisis of Character, and he is on here to let us know what his thoughts are on this latest incident in Reno, Nevada, where the Secret Service had to rush Donald Trump off the stage. And with your vast experience in the Secret Service, maybe you can give us some insight. Did you get a chance to see that? And welcome to the program, Gary.
First of all, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, I did get a chance to review the tape a couple of times, and I saw the Secret Service do exactly what it's supposed to do: detect, make a decision, and move the protectee to a safe location, and then adjust. And then and go on with go on with his speech. So basically, what I saw, if you want me to just start there,
sure.
Yeah. So when you first see the video, you see an agent move across the stage from the left to the right. That's probably the shift leader. And you watch what he did. He takes his right arm and he reaches all the way across Mr. Trump and grabs him by the arm on his right side, and he pulls him towards him and across. So in other words, he's using his back and his body to block Mr. Trump. And the reason they're starting to react is what they've done is somebody in the audience started causing a commotion. And either this person or somebody else yelled the word gun.
Oh, no.
So the word gun, this is Brian. So the word gun was heard, or at least.
Right. It's reported that it was heard. So then what typically happens is the agents key their radio and they say, disturbance, somebody said gun, we're not sure exactly what's going on. And then the shift leader makes the decision to move towards the protectee. Now, he might radio that he's doing that. More than likely, he just moves because he knows everybody's watching him too, his team. is watching him. As he moves to the protectee, that's their signal. And then as he's moving towards Mr. Trump, another agent is coming up on stage to help this guy. And you watch them, and I'll kind of cover each thing here. As they're moving Mr. Trump off the stage, you see they kind of push his head down. And they're trying to get his head down, and the one agent comes up from behind the first agent, and they're blocking as much of Mr. Trump's body with theirs as they can. As this is happening, you see the agents in the front of the podium moving forward. They see where the problem is. They're moving towards it, but also watch their head and their eyes. They're looking around for more distractions. Is this just a distraction, or is this the one thing that's going on? Is it just this one thing, or is it multiple things, and it's a real attack? And they make that decision instantaneously, and then when they see that this person is making this disturbance, they jump over the fence. In the meantime, they jump over the personnel barrier so they can get to him. In the meantime, Mr. Trump is off stage. He's in the back, and then the agents behind him, behind the stage that are posted, they're going to collapse on Mr. Trump. They're going to walk up to him. The lead agents got him. They're going to say, "Mr. Trump, are you okay?" They're going to check him over physically, look at him. And clearly, they didn't hear anything that would lead them to believe, but you always check. That's the process. He says he's okay. They're just waiting for the okay from the guys outside on the stage area. They've identified this person. The local police has come up, and they've moved him outside of the area. He has no weapon. It was just one of those things. And I have to give the Secret Service, a lot of kudos and credit here. They did it exactly the way they were trained. They adapted. They got it done. And I give Mr. Trump a lot of credit, too. It's a little nerve-wracking.
Right.
When the Secret Service tells you to move, they're not telling you to move to go get something to eat. Right. They're moving you because they think there's a threat.
Right.
And it gets that adrenaline pumping. And I'm telling you, this is one of the things why I like Donald Trump so much. He came back out, he made a little comment about it, and he pressed on with his mission, which was to do his speech. So I think that was a good sign for everybody. Of course, the Secret Service did its job, and I think Mr. Trump did his job very well, too.
Yeah, I like the way that they did let him come back out. I guess that would probably be okay if they find out that that the threat was just imagined or whatever it was that somebody yelled out gun. And you're saying that you heard from somebody or from some source that it was just that gun was yelled out.
Right. It was reported on the scene. So okay. It was reported by the police officers there. It was reported by the people that were standing by him that either this guy or somebody else yelled the word gun.
So the reports, this is limited reporting, that somebody actually said that the guy who was creating a disturbance was actually reaching for one of the Secret Service members' guns.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know anything about that. If that's true, here's why I'm not sure about that, is because if that's true, they would have arrested him on the spot.
Yeah, they would have taken him away, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, they did walk him out, but what I saw and the information I have is that he pretty much was thrown out. He wasn't arrested. If he had gone for somebody's gun, he'd have a broken arm from his fingers to his elbow, and be more than likely he'd be on his way to the hospital. I'm not saying they're abusive. I'm saying they take it very seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
And it would have been a little bit more dramatic than what we saw there. So
yeah, and I saw a whole bunch of the people that were in the frame of the shot that I saw. I'm talking about the spectators. They turned around towards the rear, and some of them just started running. So apparently what we heard of the report of somebody screaming gun would make sense for the reaction, Right,
exactly. And it also appeared, too, that some of the spectators that were close by actually kind of took it upon themselves to kind of hold on to this guy until the Secret Service agents could climb over the personnel barriers. So, which is nice for people to assist. You don't want them getting too involved.
Right.
But if they can slow down somebody's movement that you're chasing. And then one of the things you don't see is as the Secret Service guys are coming over the barriers, going after this guy. Now, by this time, they've focused on who they think the problem is. But what they don't realize is that the local police, look like a SWAT team, is coming up from behind. And that's what the Secret Service asked them to do. Absolutely. They're part of the response. So they're squishing this guy in. The Secret Service agents are coming from the podium, and this response team is coming from the back. So if he had gone for somebody's gun, I have to tell you, it would be a little bit different of an ending.
Yeah, that's.
But
good
I wasn't there. I'm just telling you, based on what I saw and what I put together.
Well, that is good information to know, because I really had no other reason to know. I didn't know that he didn't get arrested. So knowing that he didn't get arrested, that makes perfect sense that he would not have gone after the gun. So that report would have been false, apparently.
Yeah, the last report I saw, he was walking off by himself. Now, they could have changed their minds. Who knows? I mean, there's no, it's an ongoing thing. Maybe they discovered something else later on and they went and found him. I'm sure they identified him before they let him go. So
right. And then the last report was that he was trying to jump over the barrier. I mean, I know that the Secret Service would have been jumping over the barrier towards him.
Yes.
But, do you know anything about what he was physically trying to do?
Yeah. Maybe he was just trying to jump over the barrier to draw more attention. Maybe his whole thing was about trying to get arrested and make himself look popular. Who knows? But I will tell you that jumping a barrier, whether it be the White House fence, especially at the event like we saw last night, you jump a barrier towards the Secret Service protectee, and you're just asking for hospitalization.
Right?
That's what I was thinking. I mean, if I was in the Secret Service or if I was in a situation like that, my first reaction would be, we got to neutralize this threat. Neutralize meaning immobilize.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. But there's a use of force continuum that they have to go by. So verbal is pretty much it. Starts out verbal, and then passive. Passive, verbal, and then as he's, then it becomes physical, hands-on. They have the option of using their hands, a collapsible or extendable baton, and then, of course, their firearm. They didn't see a firearm, so they didn't respond with one, more than likely. Okay. That doesn't mean they don't have – that means you don't have to – let me clarify that. A police officer, especially Secret Service, uniform division officers or agents, they do not have to – risk their own lives to use deadly force. So if they see somebody jamming their hand into their pants waistline, they don't have to wait until they see or don't see a gun. They can draw their weapon out and be ready. So, but what they saw didn't push their level of concern that high. I think they handled it very well. They closed in on them.
Oh, did we lose them?
With this response from the front and from the back, like they always do, and they did a very good job.
So now, when you're in a crowd situation like that, and the threat is in the center of a crowd, when you're using force like a gun, I mean, obviously, you got to take into play all the people around you, right?
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility. You've really hit the nail on the head. That's the thing you got to think about is the backstop, because. Everybody thinks that Secret Service people are these great marksmen, and they are. Don't get me wrong. But you're talking about hitting a moving target that's moving towards you. I'm not saying it's not possible to make the shot. It absolutely is. But you have to know what your backstops are.
Right.
And let me put it to you this way. If somebody pulls a gun out on a Secret Service agent or officer, and they're within arm's reach, and I would define arm's reach as between 4 and 6 feet, they're going to lunge for the gun. Okay. They're not going to waste their time pulling the gun. They're going to lunge for it. They're going to lunge for the gun. They're going to try to wrestle to the ground, and that gives the other part of the detail time to get the protectee out of the way. And that's part of a scenario you might have seen if that person, in fact, had a weapon, whether it had been a gun, a knife, a sharpened stick, whatever. But they do work in concert. And basically, as it plays out, as we saw it play out with Mr. Trump yesterday, the way it played out dictate what these guys are going to do. And if that person, if that guy had stood there and started swinging fists at those agents,
wow,
they would have, right. Well, it happens. Believe me. The scenario that you saw yesterday in Nevada, I personally saw similar ones. I was there years ago when Bill Clinton was president, something similar like that in Ohio. But instead of somebody yelling gun, it was somebody was painting the president with a laser pointer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the thing you saw yesterday, the Secret Service deals with that all the time. The agents, the uniform division, the local police that are assisting the Secret Service while they're there, they deal with this stuff all the time. There's a lot of crazy people out there. It's funny, though, a lot of the things that I saw happen over the years didn't end up on camera like this did, because it happened like that.
I didn't even think about that. There's so many people with cameras all the time that you end up getting this stuff captured on video all the time.
Yeah.
So you're listening to Gary Byrne. He is the author of Crisis of Character. He was a Secret Service agent outside the Oval Office during the Bill Clinton years, and also especially during the Monica Lewinsky scandal. And I guess you were subpoenaed several times, 6 times, I believe, is what you said in your book, over the Monica Lewinsky scandal, as far as lying to Congress and all that kind of stuff is concerned with Bill Clinton. Now, we have Hillary Clinton. She's going to be up for election in a couple days here. Right. And they reopen. We're kind of changing gears here. They reopen this FBI investigation based on everything that you know from being there in their house for those several years that you were there, and what you've learned about her character, which is kind of you mention her a lot in your book. What are you happy? Is this like some sort of is there satisfaction with maybe justice being done?
First of all, the White House isn't their house; it's our house.
There you go.
So you and your audience and the rest of the United States lends it to them to use while they're elected. Just to clarify that. 2, I take no joy in the fact that Hillary Clinton is again in another scandal and the Clinton machine. What I do take some happiness in is that the FBI seems like it's starting to do its job. Listen, it's hard to get this point across as crystal clear as it needs to be done in a short period of time that we're talking. But, it's one of the reasons I wrote my book, Crisis of Character, because I want the American people to know who the real Hillary Clinton is and the real Bill Clinton. Have no doubt in your mind, when the country elected Bill Clinton president in the early 1990s, you got Bill and Hillary. And if Hillary gets elected, you're going to get Hillary and Bill. Oh, just as a reminder to your younger listeners, there were 19 scandals in the 8 years Bill Clinton was president.
Wow.
Scandals, a minimum. And that's not including what took place in Arkansas and afterwards. How do you govern when there's almost 2 scandals a year? You don't. You govern poorly. That's what we saw. This is what we saw with her as the Secretary of State. Listen, if she had some leadership skills, they would have risen by now. I have not seen any. How can anybody in their right mind, whether you were in the military or not, whether you believe, how could you justify what happened in Benghazi?
Right.
She sent that mission to Benghazi. They sent 600 messages about needing added security, and she ignored them all. She had time to talk about her family member's wedding, yoga, how Sidney Blumenthal's doing, but she never responded to those messages. On the night of that attack on September 11th, 2012, a handful of men and women fought for 13 hours with $200,000 or less of small arms, while there were hundreds of billions of dollars of American military equipment staged around the world, men and women ready to go and rescue them and help, and nobody sent them. Nobody made the call. It's unacceptable.
The WikiLeaks that came out here just the past couple of days, they talked about some of the emails to where Christopher Stevens had made a comment back in March, which would have been 3, 4, 5 months before this all went down, and Stevens said, "Hey, you guys got to get me out of here. This is not safe. This is not safe." And then the next email came back to him, talking to him and talking him into staying because the optics of America leaving would be bad.
Yes.
We were the only ones there left, but the optics of America leaving would be, it's just not, just a little bit longer, Steve. Just a little bit longer, buddy.
Well, and not only that, so they're probably trying to avoid that whole Vietnam thing with the helicopter leaving off the roof and everything like that, which obviously that looked really bad. But also, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. One of the things that we've been trained and taught over and over during that whole time is that we can be anywhere in the world within 24 hours. And maybe they didn't have 24 hours, but they had things staged nearby, which we've learned about, that they could have used to respond, and they just totally – the reason it didn't happen is because I feel that there was an order for stand down, and that's the only thing that could possibly explain either that or massive incompetency.
Right. The air base I was stationed on out in Aviano, Italy, the F-16s there are around the clock, always flying sorties. I mean, they're always active. those F-16s could have been there. It wouldn't have been
13 hours. That's plenty of time. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So as far as the FBI, the one thing that blows my mind, now we're getting into the reports of things that kind of resemble satanic worship, and then we all knew, or at least suspected, that Bill was taking these flights without Secret Service to Lolita Island or whatever they call it. And now these new reports are coming out that maybe even Hillary was taking flights to this crazy island.
They're saying 6 times.
6 times or whatever. You were there. Did they actually let Bill go places without any Secret Service?
Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear?
Okay.
Oh, the question was, you were there. Did you know of any time that Bill was let go places without any Secret Service?
Okay, so you've asked a difficult question to answer. So
you might get in trouble if you answer that.
No, I'm going to tell you the truth, but I'm going to do it very carefully. So here's the thing: a protectee, a president, is family anyway. I'm not 100% sure about the president, but like the first lady, family members, they can sign off on their protection and take their own responsibility. But it is illegal. You have to sign these legal documents releasing the Secret Service of their responsibility. Is it possible that Bill Clinton signed off, as a former president, signed off on his security? It is possible. Whether that took place or not, I don't know. Now, when he was president, those 8 years, there were some issues. You've heard other people write about it in other books where he allegedly tried to sneak out of the complex, or somebody tried to help him. Now, I don't know that it actually took place, but here's what I do know. I do know there was a memo circulated letting us know and reminding us of our responsibilities if we see the president trying to leave. And there's, well, we experienced it with the first lady one time, and I tell that story in my book, Crisis of Character. But there was an incident. I wasn't privy to it happening in front of me, but there was a memo circulated reminding us that if you see the president leaving the complex and his details not with him, that it's your responsibility as an agent or an officer. And this was kind of geared towards the uniform division, because we're the outer perimeter and the inner perimeter, the posts inside the White House, and we're the last people you see when you're leaving. And to the point where, you were supposed to dive into the car if you had to, or follow him and go over the radio, but you're never supposed to let him leave your sight.
How mad would he be trying to sneak out?
Right. Well, why that was circulated, I don't know all the details, but I do know what I just told you was true.
Okay, what about the character that you knew of them back in the 90s? Does that have any similarity? Does that connect the dots? Or is this this sexual sex cesspool, the sex in the Clintons and Podesta and all of that?
Yeah, so let me tell it to you this way. In the early 1991, before he started running against President George Herbert Walker Bush, I was down in Arkansas on a detail for President Bush, the father. And there were stories in the paper about this guy, Bill Clinton, going to run for office. And I was standing post with this local deputy sheriff for about 6 hours one day. And we were very nice guy. We were joking, talking, and I said, look, there's no way that the American people are ever going to elect this guy, Bill Clinton. Look at all these stories, just as governor. And he said, let me tell you something, Gary. Everything you hear about them, everything, it's true. Believe it. No matter how bizarre it is, believe it. He goes, I've been around these people my entire life. My family has. If you hear it, it's true.
Oh. So are you lending credibility to the fixer, the guy referred to as the fixer?
Well, I'm not lending credibility to him intentionally. I'm just telling you the way it is. This is what I heard.
Because he says the same thing.
Yeah, so this deputy says, Gary, if he runs, he'll win, and he'll be there for 8 years. He said, let me tell you something. They can spin manure into gold. It's amazing what they get away with, and no matter how bizarre it is, always believe it. So then you fast forward, and the Clintons get elected, and all the rumors we heard about his sexual conduct, about Bill and Hillary's anger towards each other, about the fights in the governor's residence, they brought the whole circus roadshow to Washington, D.C. And we saw, again, I'm the guy who was subpoenaed 6 times in the Monica Lewinsky scandal. And just to clarify this for your audience, the Monica Lewinsky scandal was not about sex. It was about lying and suborning perjury.
Yes.
Bill Clinton signed an affidavit saying that he never had a physical relationship with the intern Monica Lewinsky, and that he was never in a room together with her alone. And she signed the same thing. Now, she would have been in jail if she hadn't made a deal with the FBI. The real kind of hero of this whole story that most people don't realize is a woman named Linda Tripp, who was Monica's friend, realized what she was doing, and then when Monica told her what she was doing, she actually kind of made her an unwilling accomplice, because now this woman who worked at the White House knew that Lewinsky was trying to suborn perjury and lie to the FBI and lie to the Justice Department. So she eventually came forward with the blue dress that proved that they had a physical relationship. And then eventually I had to testify to it, and some of my coworkers. So that's what the real story is about. It's about lying and suborning perjury. Now, you fast forward through all those 19 scandals, they all have the similar thing involved: Hillary and Bill Clinton. And everything that you see them say is a lie. Let's look at the email server thing. That's the most recent one in everybody's mind. And when you learn about you pay attention to how the email server thing started and the way it's still going, that's the way every scandal starts. The first thing they say is, that's not true, it's a lie. Then when they find out it is true, there is a server, what's the next thing she says? Well, everybody else did it. She tried to blame it on Colin Powell almost.
She did. She did.
That's right.
Yeah. So then the next thing she says is, well, I can guarantee you this: there was no classified information. As soon as I heard her say that, like about a week after it came out, 2 weeks, I just started laughing. I'm like, this is going to be the biggest. This is going to make all the other scandals and Watergate look like a walk in the park. I just know it. I know. I've been around classified material my entire life. I've walked into buildings where you had to almost strip down before you could go into the skiff, and you couldn't bring a watch in, you couldn't bring a radio in, you couldn't bring a cell phone in, and just to get the most minute classified information. And where now we have the lady who's supposed to be, according to Barack Obama, the most qualified candidate ever, had 110 emails, classified emails on her private server. Now they're all over the place. They're on Huma Abedin's pervert husband's laptop.
Right.
They're all over the world. We have no idea where this information will end up. I'm telling you, this scandal will never go away.
The FBI, and this, I was listening to Mark Levin's show on Thursday, and he was talking to a former FBI agent, and the conversation they had was that the FBI was so upset and so beside themselves that the folks that work for Comey, they all wanted to indict. And when Comey turned around and said no, I heard chatter back then in July that there were alternatives that the underlings could use. And now I'm hearing that they may have leaked this stuff to WikiLeaks.
Almost like bypassing authority, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, I get what you're saying, and I believe, me personally, I believe that's what we're seeing happen. Listen, the FBI's entire job is investigation of crime. And when these guys are straight up, you listen, every agency's got some dunderheads in it, but for the most part, the FBI are some good guys. And they spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of man hours investigating this. And Mr. Comey laid out the indictment. I mean, there was no doubt in anybody's mind. And then he let her go.
Right.
So I think this is exactly what we're seeing. I think it's a little bit of rebellion. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's the right thing to do, because clearly the FBI director made a decision that really is.
Nope. You there? You broke up a little bit.
Legality. It's about politics.
Okay. So now.
You there? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you. So now they're saying that some of these emails that Obama was using on his secured BlackBerry, every time she changed an email, Huma had to tell Obama she changed her email again. So you're going to have to put this on the white list. Obviously, she's using an unsecured server. He knows it, and he's emailing her from a secured BlackBerry, and he knows it. information, secret information. Does this violate the Espionage Act? Is this something that Comey didn't want to let out the bag?
Yeah, there are so many violations going on here. I'm not sure everybody understands it. First of all, the classified information that they're passing, you're never supposed to move classified information over the internet. Never. Not over a special internet. Never. Classified information that's kept on computers in the State Department, in the CIA, in the Air Marshal Service where I am, wherever, the Secret Service, are supposed to be standalone computers. You don't transmit classified information over the internet. The ideal that we also know, I think what you were heading to also with your question is, we also know that supposedly President Obama now was using a fake name to communicate with her.
Correct.
He absolutely knew that the email he was sending this to was not a .gov or .state email. And so there's so many implications here. This is the problem with the Clintons. It's just one scandal to the next. There'll never be any time for anybody to govern if she becomes president.
So if she is elected, and that's kind of the whole notion that everybody's talking about now,
right?
Will this be a constitutional crisis? I mean, where do we go?
Yeah, and you could also see some very bizarre maneuvering. You could also see President Obama let her go. He could exonerate her. He could pardon her. He could do a lot of things. I don't know. The American people wouldn't probably, at least half the country or more wouldn't stand for that. But then again, he's leaving office. And based on some of the other decisions he's made, I really don't think he cares what we think. So there's a lot of things that can happen here. And also the underlying thing that you have to remember when it comes to this is that, in my opinion, that she has some health issues. So this just keeps adding more and more stress on her. And I don't wish any harm to her. I don't. But that's something you have to consider. When I talk about these things and I think about these things, I think about the totality of everything that's going on. And the totality of this for the American people, it's just unfair to ask us to go through this. The ideal that a good portion of this country wants her to be president based on all these things we know is just ludicrous. It's insane. It just shows you that the Clinton machine is so good at spinning manure in the gold that they've got a good portion of the country convinced that she's the best person for the job. And it's not true.
I really thank you for coming on, and you are obviously welcome on at any time. This is Gary Byrne. And he wrote Crisis of Character, a very, very entertaining and riveting book about his time at the White House in the 90s when Bill Clinton was president.
Listen, don't be afraid to get a hold of me if you need me. Just contact Tyler and he'll arrange it all.
So I've got Tyler Durden's phone number. Going to go ahead and give him a holler.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, that was a great, great interview. I love doing this kind of things with Gary Byrne. He has so much government insight.
He's the kind of guy, and I said it earlier, and we've been saying it. He's the kind of guy you go to a local bar and have a drink with. Just hang out.
Absolutely,
just kick around. Something that I was going to bring up in the interview, but it would have kind of sidetracked things a little bit. I did message it on the message board. So if you're listening to Smith Radio right now and you're listening live on Sunday evenings between 5 and 8 p.m. Eastern time, you can go right to smithradio.info, which will take you right to our Spreaker page, and you can join the message board, the live message board, and we're texting, messaging back and forth on the board. But I did message this about Linda Tripp a few months, it might have been a month or two ago. Linda Tripp was interviewed on Breitbart, and she was going to do a radio interview on a local AM station in New York. And she talked about how the reason why, especially after Vince Foster death.
Yeah.
Where Vince Foster was.
I was going to bring that up, but I didn't want to go off on too many tangents.
Dude, we could have talked to him for hours.
Yes, we could have had a 6-hour show with him if he had time.
Well, he was cool. He was just like, yeah, guys, what's going on?
Right, right.
And if you hear some of the sound, it was rough, and we actually dropped the call. I had to pick it back up. So
we had to clean that up.
So we worked with him for an hour on just putting together a 45-minute interview. So it was great. But Linda Tripp said before Vince Foster's death that everything was open. Doors were all open. Files were open. Files were everywhere. It just was people.
There were file cabinets on the front lawn of the White House.
along with the sofa
right,
and the ripped cushions.
It was a prank. I could totally see that.
He had the frat boys over that night.
Right.
Slick Willie did. But
Skull and Bones, all that stuff.
Yeah. She said that it was pretty much an open door policy. She could go in, see her boss, talk to him, and walk through the whole place. But she said right after Vince Foster's death, everything shut down. Everybody was shocked. Everybody was taken back. All doors were shut. All files were shut. Nobody talked to anybody. She said the air was so thick, you could cut it with a knife.
Wow.
But she went into, when she was called in the middle of the night at midnight, 1 a.m, a surrogate called her and said Vince had taken his life, he's dead. She said her instant knee-jerk response to the person that called her was, "How do you know it was suicide?" She said it was like that was on her mind.
So she was worried about his life before he died, not related to suicide.
Apparently. And then she said after that, when Monica started to break out, the scandal with the Lewinsky, she saw Monica just absolutely insanely in love and becoming possessive of Bill Clinton and just all this craziness that she said, I had to come out with this in order to save her life.
Oh, I totally could see that. And one thing that we didn't mention in his book, Crisis of Character, was that he does have a blurb in there about how he had friends in the Secret Service, FBI, all these investigators, he is in law enforcement, who told him that, and this is all written in his book, that when they did the investigation of his death, that the suicide weapon, which was an actual handgun, was inoperable. They had to fix it in order to fire it for forensic purposes. And that is very strange. How can you kill yourself with an inoperable weapon?
In the back of the head, 5 feet away.
Well, I don't know about those details, but I don't know. So in our second hour, we're going to be talking communism. It's kind
of,
we kind of jerked the wheel a little bit there, but we have an interview with a guy who made a book called The Enemies Within. And he also just recently came out with a documentary. It's not a fictional movie it's an actual documentary. And this kind of stuff goes near and dear to both Brian and I's heart because we're at that age, we're like the youngest people around who really truly understand communism and the Cold War and the threat of communism and why we were in a Cold War. These millennials and even a little bit of the Generation Y people are just definitely the millennials. There have been studies done. They don't know anything about communism. They don't know anything about the Soviet Union. They don't know anything about the Cold War. They don't understand the nature of it. They don't know anything about it. And I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm not blaming the millennials.
Yeah, they're uninformed.
They are being raised by the state through a public education system who has completely deleted this from the history lesson.
Correct. And the information that they may know, like one kid that was just 21, just turned 21, he said, oh, no, communism and capitalism, they a lot of similarities.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, you got it wrong, Brian. Brian, what you're saying, you don't understand it. I had to stop it.
Oh, communism failed? That's because the right people haven't been implemented to make it work.
Right. And the way for it to work is X, Y, and Z. We need to give all the power to Hillary. She'll make communism work.
Yeah, we just need to stop with all this, all these people trying to slow her down, obstructing her will. We need to give her a open runway. And when she decides what we're supposed to do, when she dictates to us what we're supposed to do on a daily basis, then communism will start working.
Right.
And also, we have to make sure that everybody is working as hard as they can for the love of Mother America.
No longer Mother
not
Russia.
For money, not for wealth, not for fame, not for just for the country.
Because for somebody to have $1 billion Come on, man.
That's too much. What do you need all
too
that money
much.
for? By the way, I know a young whippersnapper lady of mine, friend of mine. I would say she's right on the edge of millennial. I would say she's right there. I would call her millennial. She is a trust fund baby.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
right.
she's worth about $1 billion. I mean, not her. It's her
The
grandfather.
whole family was worth $1 billion.
If
So
you put all of
her slice of the pie.
her slice of the pie is part of $1 billion,
Right.
and it was created by her and by the way, this lady's right wing because she grew up in a right wing family and whatever. Her dad was a land developer. And he did a very good job. He worked very hard. He did all the right things. He developed the entire west side of Cincinnati. And so when he died, he was worth just under, I would say 3/4.
When her grandfather died.
When her grandfather died.
Okay.
What'd I say?
Her father.
Okay, her grandfather. When he died, supposedly he was worth about $750 million. He had a couple sons. They divided all that up, like 3 of them.
They found a safe in the basement.
Oh, my gosh.
Gold bars, gold bullion.
And Brian's not joking. This is not a joke. He had 2 safes. Both of them were the size of that you would put in a bank. One of them was wide open. Everybody could see it. The other one was hidden in the walls.
Yeah, the one that was wide open was the decoy.
Yeah, it had like stacks of hundreds all over the place.
And that's the decoy.
That's the decoy. The hidden one was the one that had a wall. This was reported to me directly, horse's mouth. A wall. Have you ever seen in Pulp Fiction when they open the briefcase and the orange light makes their face glow?
Yeah.
But you never see what's in there?
No,
but you suspect it's got to be gold, right?
Right.
This was a wall of gold. And here's another cool story. She found out about this when she was working at a place that's kind of like, I don't want to say the name of it, but it's like a Shenanigans.
Oh.
Yeah, one of those.
So dance club?
No. Like a.
So she wasn't a dancer. She was a server.
Kind of like a TGI Fridays, but not.
Okay. So cocktail waitress.
Well, she probably served food too.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, her dad shows up right after they were cleaning Grandpa's house out and says, "Hey, honey, you got to come out and check this out.
Come outside."
So they have a late model Lincoln Town car, something, like a bigger car. She noticed that the butt end was dragging.
What's wrong with your car, Dad? It's on the ground.
Yeah, it looked like the springs and shocks were taken out of the rear, and it was practically touching the ground. She comes out, and he pops up, and it was Pulp Fiction. Pops open the trunk, and there, glowing in her face, was a trunk full of gold bars, so much so that he couldn't even drive this car around. It was like dragging its butt end. So this is how I know she was being truthful, because these kind of details do not come unless you're telling the truth. She said that it was really weird looking, and she picked it up. She said she had to hold it close to her body because it was so heavy. It was like the size of like a brick of gold. And she couldn't hold it out in front of her because of how much it weighed. Because, by the way, gold is extremely dense. It's like as dense as lead or something,
You're
right?
saying it's 400 ounces?
Whatever it was. So she had to hold it close to her body just to have the leverage to hold it and not drop it. She also said she thought it was probably close to 24 karat gold because she was able to graffiti her name in it with her fingernail.
No way.
She said it was real beat up looking. It wasn't shiny like you see in the movies. It was real beat up looking, had like fingerprints on it and all that kind of stuff.
So that's small bar of gold. I mean, this woman, it's like 25 to 30 pounds.
Yeah, could you imagine?
Just a bar?
Well, imagine handing a 25-pound brick of gold to somebody, which is very small. You'd be surprised at how heavy 25 pounds is.
Right.
That's like a large child, like a baby, like a large baby.
Well, if you look
large
at
baby,
the 25,
really large baby.
The 25-pound dumbbell.
Yeah.
To have my little wife pick that up.
Yeah, she'd have to hold it close to her body.
Both hands, hold it close.
So I totally believe the story. And so anyway, that's those are your billionaires. She's not but she doesn't know anything about communism.
Which is a shame because we're going down that road headlong and it's not stopping. The gas pedal has been broken. It's trode on the floor and we're going at the speed of light.
So we have this interview with Trevor Loundon, who, please go buy his book The Enemies Within. There's a lot of different books written out there that have similar titles. This is not The Enemy Within. It's not Enemy Within. It's not Enemies Within. It's The Enemies Within. And also his website, we'll talk about it in the interview, so here it is.
Welcome to Smith Radio. We have an exclusive interview today with Trevor Loundon, the author of the book, The Enemies Within, creating the documentary, The Enemies Within. It's a fascinating read and a fascinating book about the communist in America, communist takeover, and how we've never defeated communism. Communism is everywhere around us. It's just taken a different form and a different name, whether it be progressives, liberals, Democrat. They are here and they are inside our system. So today we are talking with Trevor, and we're talking about where it all begins and about the education system. My whole point, Trevor, is that the education system out in Los Angeles, where I had spent some time, is absolutely in shambles. The statistics are children who go from the 6th grade to the 7th grade in LA Unified School District system, 50% of those kids will drop out of school. You have the teachers' unions that will get the kids together, and the kids trust the teachers more than they do their own parents, but they'll get the kids together and they'll say, you know what, kids, we're going to go against the system. We're going to go against the rule of law. We're going to break the law today. We're all going to leave school, unbeknownst to your parents, and we're going to go out in the middle of the street and we're going to march against this cause, global warming, racism, you name it, and the children will follow lock, stock in line with what the teachers are requesting them to do, as if they've been brought up in this education system, the whole notion from cradle to grave. What are your thoughts on that?
The education system there has always, for many years, been under the control of the left. And the idea is, I'm your teacher, I'm your friend, I'm going to show you the truth that your parents are hiding from you. I'm going to show you about revolution and social change and social justice, and we're going to stand up against that patriarchal society that your parents are trying to brainwash you into. So this is actually dividing families. It's setting kids against parents. And again, this is deliberate strategy. You know, revolution is about overturning the natural order of life. The things in society that keep society stable and free and prosperous, revolution is all about breaking those things down to create a new society. But it won't be a society where we all love and care for each other. It'll be society where the very few rule over all of us and tell us what to do in every element of our lives. This is the horrible thing about it. It's a trap. It's a lie.
Do you think that it's maybe innate, it's human nature that when because I'm trying to find out where these kids, when they see or they're taught about revolution, even with the Beatles and the Marxist propaganda song, Imagine and Revolution, but the whole revolution. Why is it so? It's like a magnet. It draws the kids in when they hear, "Oh, we're going to revolt. Oh, it's a revolution. Well, let's get involved somehow." Is it Is it just a thing that they don't understand? And I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
Well, look. Every kid wants to buck their parents, right? Right. We all do it. When we're all teenagers, we want to have our own ideas, think things through for ourselves, and separate ourselves from our parents. Become individuals. So that's a very vulnerable time, and that's a natural human process. We all want to, just come out with our own ideas, our own thinking, be individuals. So the left exploits that, and plants and that they take a natural process and exaggerate it and exacerbate it and make it worse and worse till you actually have a cultural and generational divide. Because, normally, in the old days, you'd sort of rebel against your parents and then you'd sort of come back into the fold and reconcile, and you'd learn that they were pretty smart after all.
Right.
And you would carry on. But now they're using this the same as they're trying to divide the generations as they're trying to divide the classes. This mythical 1% that oppresses everybody else. Are you part of the 99% or are you part of the 1%? Well, of course, everybody wants to be part of the 99%. But it's it's just not true. It's propaganda. And same as you see the racial divide that's happening in America now. You either stand with Black Lives Matter against the terrible cruelty inflicted by the police on these innocent black teenagers, or you're a fascist, or you're a racist, or whatever. So kids are being brainwashed into accepting this revolutionary line that the police are all fascists, they're all pigs, they're all racist, they're all killing young black kids indiscriminately, when nothing could be further from the truth.
Right. Right. No, absolutely right. And I'm not sure if you've kept tabs on the NFL here in America.
Yeah, the Colin Kaepernick scandal. Let's refuse to stand for the national anthem game.
Right, and something that still gives me an inkling, if you will, of hope for America and the American people is that they're talking about how the NFL has plummeted and taken a huge hit financially and viewership-wise ever since that happened.
Yeah, that's really good to hear.
Yeah, well, because Americans are voting with their pocketbooks because they're disgusted by that kind of thing. Most Americans, see, this is always the left fringe. This 5% of America is trying to destroy this country. And 5% is trying to save it, and 90% of people in the middle are patriotic Americans who don't quite understand what's going on. So there's 5% of radicals working with the media, which is totally controlled by the socialists,
right,
push this narrative, and we're supposed to buy into it. But when people actually have a choice, when they can turn their TV off or not go to a game, they vote with their feet.
Now, there's one thing.
Most Americans are disgusted by these antics.
The one thing that they can't vote with, there's this compulsory education. I want to revisit education real quick.
That's exactly right.
Right. It's compulsory. It's very, very difficult to vote with your pocketbook or whatever. And now on the ballot here in Ohio, we have this. They want to fund. They want to start a brand new program from scratch that would force, I think it's as young as 3-year-olds to do compulsory preschool, and they're selling it as, kids will get a leg up and they'll enter kindergarten knowing how to read and they'll get this boost. And I've learned enough about Karl Marx and Engels to know that one of the things that they want to do is destroy the nuclear family, right? And
that's exactly what. If you read Marxism, they don't believe in the family at all. All children should be brought up by the state.
Oh my goodness!
And in a real communist society, you don't have a family. You are born, your parents mate at an assigned time. You are born, and then you're basically put in a state-run nursery to become indoctrinated in the new way of life. That's their ideal system. And they've never been able to fully implement that so far. North Korea's come pretty close to that. But that is their ideal. So, the old saying is, give me control of the child till they're 7 and I will have them for life.
Right.
So the younger the state can get control of the children, the earlier they can indoctrinate them. And you're much more easily indoctrinated at the age of 2 or 3 than you are at 5 or 6 or 7 or 9. So it's absolutely correct that the unions, the teachers' unions, who are all controlled by communists, are pushing every state to introduce earlier and earlier compulsory indoctrination. It is indoctrination, not education.
There's a motivational speaker, a philosopher, if you will, by the name of Brian Tracy. He's pretty. He's world renowned. He's got a handful of books out, and I've listened to a lot of his audio from back in the day. And something that I was shocked about when it comes to children is that he makes the claim that doctors can trace back almost all mental disorders from childhood, from the ages below 3 years old. And the neglect or the lack of human interaction, caring, loving. I mean, there were studies done back when nobody stopped them from doing it, where they took a handful of children and divided them into two different groups, and one set got loving, nurturing care from the nurses and whatnot, and the other set was just given, food and water and whatnot. And they found out very quickly they had to stop this because the children that weren't getting that loving, nurturing, caring touch started to quickly just shrivel up and die off. And what I've seen, we homeschool our children, and what I've seen is that
excellent.
Thank you. Is that our kids here at home are speaking as adults at the age of 4 and 5 and 6 years old because they're mimicking us.
Yeah.
So this whole notion of earlier childhood education is completely false for the sole fact that I know that my kids being with me in that loving, nurturing family, hanging out with mom, hanging out with dad, just that connection all the way up until whenever, 4, 5, 6 years old, they've already got that connection with us. And they're little adults, if you will.
Yeah, look, that's exactly right. And I've known lots of homeschooled kids, and they are all a great success that I can see. But see, you got to realize the communist doctrine is motivated by hate. That's what it's about. It is not about love. And the greatest cradle of love is obviously the family. First, the bond between the mother and the child. The father comes along a little bit later. But those things are essential for the development of a sound, well-rounded individual. If you can break that bond early, the state becomes the parent. The state becomes the object of love. Why did Adolf Hitler set up the Hitler Youth?
Oh yeah.
What he used to do, kids very young would be taken. They'd be taken away from their parents, and they would do sporting programs all day, and they loved it. They didn't have to go to school. They would do sports all day, and they would get a bit of Hitler Nazi indoctrination to go with it. And soon they began to think, wow, would I rather spend time with my parents and do homework and housework and chores, or do I go to the Nazi indoctrination school and play sports all day with my friends and listen to stories about wonderful Herr Hitler?
Yeah, most of them would love that.
And that's how they broke the loyalty to the family and instilled loyalty to the state. And that is, now they are doing it with the teachers. You are loyal to your teacher. Your teacher guides you through life and tells you the correct way of doing things, and your parents become irrelevant. So you're creating dysfunctional individuals, and that's a deliberate program.
The teachers are also loyal to the unions, of course, and scared to death to lose their job, and they get their money and their pension, and it seems like they defend that at all costs. When really it just becomes this big, not only a moneymaker, like a fund for the communist, entity, but also they get propagandized there too, don't they?
Look, absolutely, and I know lots of teachers and teachers' unions and that sort of thing. They either go along with the agenda and they embrace the agenda, or they shut their mouth and say nothing. Wow. They do not dare to protest because their job and livelihood and promotion depends on it. Look, if you go to a place like California, wonderful state, but the politics are largely communist now.
Right.
And I know a friend of mine who recently was he'd been contracting for a company for several years, and he put a post on his Facebook that he was supporting a Republican club, and he was basically told after he posted that he would no longer be welcome in the organization.
Wow. And
that his contract would be cancelled because he did not fit in with their culture.
Oh no.
So this is and you have organizations in Hollywood like Friends of Abe. These are conservative Hollywood actors and production staff who meet secretly and hold little secret meetings, because if their political views were known in Hollywood, they would no longer get a job.
There's a
so that's the communism is about towing the line. You do what you're told. You toe the line. You will rise up the ladder. You buck the system. You will starve.
Right. There's a talk show host nationwide by the name of Larry Elder. And
yes, I know him. Yep.
He's awesome. I started listening to him probably about 10, 15 years ago. And it's incredible. He comes on Hannity's show every once in a while, and I note that he is a black man for the sole purpose that out there in Los Angeles is where his show is based out of, and he is constantly berated with you're an Uncle Tom, you're this, you're that, all the name calling, the hate, the anger, the vitriol, because he's a conservative, and he refers to himself as not a libertarian, but also a conservative at the same time. He goes to both parties. But the whole point is that he is hated upon because of his ideas.
So it's like social intimidation.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, when Obama was running for his first term in 2008, 2 months before before the election, they took Larry Elder off the air.
Yikes.
They canceled his entire show. And he was literally off the air for whatever reason. So employment-wise and also student-wise, you would agree that there's definitely a peer pressure element. And we're starting to see that, and we've probably seen this every single election cycle. But for the election this year, I noticed that the Democrats are going really hard with the peer pressure. They're saying you don't want to be a part of the Republican Trump movement or whatnot, because if you do, you shouldn't be associated with that. You should. In fact, I read an article today that said that Republicans should be ashamed of Trump because a KKK person endorsed him, which is kind of the logic isn't there. Because some guy that's involved with the KKK endorses Trump does not mean that Trump endorses the KKK. So there's like this logical fallacy that goes on there. So
that's exactly what Ronald Reagan said when some KKK people went to his rally. Because they endorse me doesn't mean I endorse them.
Right.
But Hillary Clinton, has been endorsed by the Communist Party. But now you could say, well, that doesn't mean she endorses them, but she does. She works with them. She works extensively with them, and her agenda is identical to their agenda. People will need to understand that, and this is the purpose of my movie, really, is to understand that what we call a Democratic Party in this country is now a Communist Party.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
It's been taken over completely by the communists and their Muslim Brotherhood terrorist-loving allies.
Yeah, so
that's the problem with the Democratic Party.
This is something that I think that people listening really need to get through their head. We've been talking for a little while now about this. This is Trevor Loundon, the author of Enemies Within and the creator of the movie Enemies Within. You can find it on theenemieswithin.com?
No, just enemieswithinmovie.com.
Enemieswithinmovie.com. Okay, gotcha. So this is what I notice that young people, millennials, if you will, this is what they get wrong. They hear us talking about communism, and all they can think about, because this is all they've seen their entire life, is that we must be talking about McCarthy era back in the 50s and maybe early 60s, or maybe a little bit of Cold War era type of stuff. We're talking about Soviets from back in way long time ago, the middle of the 20th century. And there's no communists now. I mean, there's progressives, there's liberals, there's leftists, there's socialists, but there's no communism. So that when they hear us talk about communism, they think that we're talking about this tiny little group somewhere. And my argument has always been that no, they're all communists. And can you make that argument?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Black Lives Matter is a completely communist-controlled movement. Most of the American labor movement is now completely communist-controlled. Most of the Democratic Party, including, I would say, Obama is a communist, Joe Biden is a communist, Hillary Clinton is a communist, and Tim Kaine is a communist. Most of the leadership of the Democratic Party is now communist. They have infiltrated that party completely. And so you see all these, most of what you call radical Islam is part of the communist movement. Al-Qaeda the leader of Al-Qaeda was trained by the Russian KGB. The Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood were all set up partially by the Soviet KGB. Even ISIS was set up partially by Russian military intelligence, which is controlled by the KGB, which is still communist. So, yeah, the communist movement has never been bigger, but it doesn't call itself that so much.
Right.
And a lot of them hide behind the name progressive or liberal or socialist. But all of these major social movements in America right now are being guided by communists. Communism has never been more influential in this country than it is today.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. And I've made the argument, I want to run this by you and see what you think of it. I've told this to everybody a million times before probably, that socialism, if you want to hear the difference between socialism and communism, I say this, that socialism is the vehicle that gets you to communism. And I believe I picked that up from a Marxist website. I think they actually said on there, we need to implement the puzzle pieces of communism, which we call socialism. Each one of those little pieces is a socialist program, like your Obamacare or single payer health care, or teachers unions or whatever program. Oh, the federal education system. And you put all those puzzle pieces together, and if you get them all in place, you got yourself communism. Does that sound like I've been describing it correctly?
That's exactly right. I say it slightly differently. I say the difference between democratic socialism, and communism is 5 to 10 years.
Oh, wow. There you go.
It's just a step along the way. And all these, the kids loved Bernie Sanders, right? Because Bernie Sanders was sticking it to the man and sticking it to the unethical corporations and the power elites. And a lot of Bernie Sanders' analysis was correct. The people he was calling out for being corrupt, like the Democratic Party leadership, they are completely corrupt. But Bernie Sanders' solution was more government, more socialism, more communism. So he was calling out mild communism and wanting to replace it with complete communism. And you got to realize Bernie Sanders is a communist. He is not a liberal or a progressive or a socialist. He is a full-on pro-Cuban, pro-Venezuelan, pro-tyranny, pro-terrorist communist.
Right.
And this is the lie of the Bernie Sanders campaign. His whole campaign was run by communists, by the Communist Party USA, by Democratic Socialists of America. He's a scamster. They talk about honest Bernie. He was the biggest crook on the thing. The only worse crook than Bernie Sanders is Hillary Clinton.
You got that right.
The Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Help me out here real quick. No, help me out here real quick then. Every time that communism has been implemented full-fledged, full board, it's always failed. And all we have to do, which the media doesn't really want to talk about, they don't want to talk about Venezuela. They don't want to talk about what Hugo Chavez did and how
Cuba, Soviet Union, all this
He used
stuff.
executive order to stay in power forever, but only by the grace of God, cancer took him soon enough. But look at Venezuela now, where a gallon of milk costs you a couple $100. You've got animals starving in the street because nobody, like household pets, starving in the street because people, to the tune of 30,000 a week, leave Venezuela in search of food and shelter. How is this not the image of communism?
Well, because there's two things. A lot of people don't see this. They don't even know it exists. And then they say it's propaganda, it's exaggerated. And then they will say, well, it's because America sabotaged their economy or something like
I've
this.
heard that argument before.
You still have all these communists who will say, well, the only reason communism failed in Russia is because America sabotaged it.
Right.
Therefore, for communism to fail, we have to take America down first. Wow. And that's what they're doing. But I'll say this too. Communism isn't a failure. Communism works beautifully because communism is not about sharing the wealth. Communism is about concentrating the wealth of everybody in a very small number of hands.
And it does that
All
well.
this sharing the wealth thing is just a scam. It's just something to bring you to fool you, to bring you into the scheme. It's something they tell you to make you work hard for them. You work hard and we'll liberate the world and everybody gets a fair share. But first before we share the wealth, we have to consolidate the wealth. We have to bring it under our control. And once it's under our control, we'll share it. Have you ever seen a tyrant get all the wealth under their control and then share it?
No, absolutely
You look
not.
at who's the richest man in North Korea? Fidel Castro has been running Cuba for 60 years now. He has got billions of dollars while the people are starving. The richest woman in Venezuela is Hugo Chavez's daughter. She's a billionaire while people are basically queuing up for toilet paper for hours. Communism works fantastically. The trouble is, it's not what they tell you it is.
It's kind of something that we've said here on Smith Radio for years, and we weren't the first people to say this, and we listen to Rush Limbaugh and some of the other folks, but people say that Obama is a failed president, but on the contrary,
no.
He's been wildly successful, and I think in his mind, if you could set him down and have an honest conversation with him, I think he would tell you, I am shocked at how easy it was for me to implement all these awful programs, all the regulations, allowing me to implement all these judges and lower courts across the nation in the attempt to coup, the silent coup.
Yeah, look, in our movie, we interview several former communists, and one of them went to school with Obama and was a communist in Obama's little secret club that he had, and another one of them was worked with several people around Obama. And we asked one of them, if you were a communist president of America, what would you do differently? And he said, well, I wouldn't be as obvious as Obama was.
Oh, my goodness. And they
because
didn't know anyway.
Obama's been a tremendously successful president. If you think Obama was there to help America to gain freedom and prosperity, he's been a disaster. If you think he was a communist, working to destroy America's economy and centralize power in a very few hands, he's been a fantastic success.
Well,
if you think he's been there to help you, he's been a disaster. If you think he's been there to destroy your military and empower your enemies like ISIS and Russia, he's been a fantastic success, because Obama is working against America. And Hillary Clinton, if she gets the chance, will finish the job that Obama started.
Were you the first one to uncover the Frank Marshall Davis connection?
Yeah.
Wow.
How did you figure that out?
Well, look, I was basically researching Communist Party publications. That's what I do all day. Like other people follow baseball scores. I read communist literature. I go to communist libraries. I go through their archives. And I found the report of a meeting at the Tamiment Library in New York where they talked about Frank Marshall Davis, the Hawaiian communist, and how he had mentored the young Obama. This wasn't really for public consumption, but because I read their literature, I found it, and I publicized it.
Wow.
And I was also the one who and so Obama, from the age of about 10 to 18, was mentored by a hardcore pro-Soviet communist who was on the FBI security index, meaning he was such a dangerous communist that had war broken out with the Soviet Union, he would have been arrested that day as a potential traitor.
Wow. And if Obama was in his presence, he might have been taken in too, huh?
Well, exactly. Obama, look, in the federal government, people need to realize if you want to work for the federal government, most posts, you need an FBI security clearance. The FBI will check out your background, make sure you have no criminal convictions or terrorist associations. They'll even look at things like bounce checks, for certain jobs. And so if you fail that, you don't get to work for the federal government. Obama would not have a prayer of passing such a test. He's been involved in communist groups, with terrorist groups, all his political career. So has Hillary Clinton. So has Tim Kaine. So has Joe Biden. So have at least 100 members of your House on the Democratic side and at least 20 of your senators. They would not be allowed to drive a school bus. They would not be allowed to sell you stamps at the post office, yet they run your country. And they are working for the enemy in many cases.
Wow, so it's their presence, they got this massive presence now in the upper echelons of our government, and that is the reason why. And also they have control of the media. And because of that, you're saying
they do.
They're able he was able to skate by all that and get through and not really be looked at. Other than like Sean Hannity and your uncovering of Frank Marshall Davis, and everybody tried to bury that. In fact, the only person I ever heard talking about Frank Marshall Davis, maybe Glenn Beck, but definitely Sean Hannity back in 2008. Other than that, it was completely ignored.
It was completely ignored, and but that's only the tip of the iceberg. The media is completely controlled by the left. Like when Mitt Romney, the Republican, was running for the presidency, they would tell you what he did with his dog on holiday, putting it on the roof of his car. They found out that he had allegedly beat up some young gay kid when he was 17. Now, to find those things out, they had to do a lot of research, and I commend them for doing that. But why do they not research the elephant's graveyard of skeletons in Obama's closet, or Hillary Clinton's closet, or Tim Kaine's closet, or Joe Biden's closet? These people are actively working against the interests of the United States. Putting your dog on a roof, that's a pretty bad thing, but that's not the same as betraying your country.
Hold on, Trevor. I learned through CNN that Mitt Romney killed a man's wife.
Did that happen?
Yeah, really? Really?
Yeah. Apparently through his health care in Massachusetts.
Ron Paul threw somebody off of a cliff or something.
Look, how many people have committed suicide? How many marriages have been torn apart in this country because of the financial stress that Obamacare has put on people?
Oh, wow, yeah.
That'll be thousands, because Obamacare was designed to fail. Obamacare is a communist program. I've got evidence on tape of people saying who helped in the design of it, this is designed to fail because when it fails, we're going to bring in total government-controlled healthcare where your entire healthcare needs are run by the federal government. Now, if you want to know how good federal government healthcare is, you go to the Indian reservations. You go to the Veterans Administration because it is rationed, it is low quality, and you wait for years for operations, and when you get to a certain age, you get nothing at all.
People up in
and
Canada,
that's what I come from in my country.
Yeah, that's
what every other country in the world has, except for America.
And people from Canada, they know this very, very, very well because Canada has a government-run socialist healthcare.
Yeah.
When they need something big or something that's life-altering, they jump the border and open up the duffel bag of cash, their life savings, so that the greatest doctors in the world can fix them on, Jimmy, on the spot. It's amazing that all these healthcare systems that are out there that have been failing, that these politicians point to them and say, we want to be more like that. And the people look at them and say, oh, okay, I guess you're right. I don't get that.
The Canadians are freaking out now because they know if you get socialized healthcare, where do they go?
Yeah, where do you go now?
What are they going to go to, Belize or Argentina, or where do you go, Look, just make it very simple for people to understand how socialized healthcare works. Because they say, they say the government's going to pay all your healthcare bills. This is wonderful, right? Now you think about this. If you're in a free enterprise healthcare system, and I know America's not free enterprise, but at least it still has elements of it. If you're in a free enterprise system, your doctor gets rich and can afford more holidays by looking after you and keeping you happy and healthy and alive. The longer you live and the more wealthy you are and the more productive you are, the more holidays they can afford, right?
Yeah,
that's how it works.
Right.
In a socialized system, there is a fixed budget. The federal government says it's $4 trillion for health, whatever it is. It's a fixed budget. Now, say if you're in where I come from, Christchurch, New Zealand, we have a socialised healthcare system. Say you're the head of the oncology department, the cancer department at Christchurch Public Hospital. You've got a budget of $20 million a year for chemotherapy. That's your budget, right? Mm-hmm. Now you've got a seven-year-old girl and one bed, and she's got leukemia. You can give her $100,000 worth of treatment and extend her life 30, 40, 50 years. She may marry, grow up, have children, have a career. You've got a 75-year-old guy in the next bed, your grandfather, who's got prostate cancer. And you can give him $100,000 worth of a treatment and extend his life 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Now, it's the end of the financial year. Your budget is running out. You can only afford to treat one of them. What are you going to do?
Consult a death panel.
Is that what
you don't need a death panel. It's just that's the budget. You don't need death panels. Every head of every cardiology department, cancer department, they are making these decisions every day. You've got a fixed budget and unlimited health needs. If you're old, you don't get treatment. You get morphine and put in the corner to die. That's how it works in New Zealand. That's how it works in Australia and Scotland and Canada and Scandinavia and all these wonderful places with government-run healthcare. America is the only place they will work to keep you alive as long as they possibly can and spare no expense.
So in your movie,
the only place in the world.
The movie Enemies Within, you can find it at enemieswithinmovie.com. Do you cover all the aspects, all the different puzzle pieces of communism? We went over education system. We went over the healthcare system. We didn't get into global warming. What is your opinion on that?
Look, global warming is just another communist socialist scam to get you to give up your liberty. You know, to drive up energy prices so you can't afford to heat your house, to make you accept all these socialist controls to appease this mythical, completely farcical scam of global warming. But to answer your question, no, we don't deal with all of these issues in this movie. We mainly deal with the Muslim Brotherhood and communist infiltration into your government. We name a whole bunch of senators and congressmen who are working for the other side. We look at the communist backgrounds of Obama and Biden and Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine, and basically expose the treachery that's going on inside your government. You know, America has got Obamacare rammed down its throat. You've got immigration amnesty. You've got all these things, the gutting of your military, nuclear deal with Iran, all because you have communists who have infiltrated your government, pushing their agenda onto 300 million Americans. That's basically what we expose.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. If you had told me all this stuff 5 years ago, I would have said, you know what, Trevor, that sounds a little bit out there. I'm not 100% sure if I want to agree with that. But, I don't. It's a little bit tinfoil hat for me. However, we look at what we have uncovered in the WikiLeaks and the Snowden stuff with the government entity that's watching us all, Big Brother, and then you add to it these new James O'Keefe tapes where they're blatantly stealing the election with voter fraud, and this is all coming from the highest.
And the James O'Keefe people he's exposing are communists. He doesn't say that, but they are communists,
right? And you wouldn't ever find. Well, I assume I'm making a leap of judgment here, but I doubt you'd ever be able to find these kinds of tapes on Republicans or conservatives or whatnot. Maybe establishment Republicans, but the people that are really trying to make America work properly, I would say that we want to properly work in democracy. But after all these revelations have come out, I mean, everything that you're saying is 100% believable. All these infiltrations and their grand design ideas for this new communism in America and then throughout the world. Do you have an opinion on how globalism, as far as borderless world and all that kind of stuff, does that all play into this too, or is that unrelated?
Yeah, no, it's completely related. You look, what the aim for America is to eventually just bring it down to till it's one more province in the global United Nations, a one world government where America really has no borders. Mexico will probably take over parts of America. China will probably be given the West Coast. This kind of thing. So the idea is to bring America down so it's no longer an independent country. It's just one province of the United Nations. And you've got to understand the United Nations, too, was set up by the communists. When I had a friend who infiltrated the New Zealand Communist Party some years back and trained in Moscow. And in a big training school there, 6,000 students, all secretly brought into the country. And he said, look, we were taught all the time, the United Nations is our thing. It's our organ for controlling the world. It's our scheme. So the United Nations, globalism, where there are no borders, where it's all one big world, that's going to be one global government. Now, if you think you're a bit detached from the American government, if you think they don't listen to you, if you don't think your state government listens to you, or your town government doesn't listen to you, or your parents don't listen to you, you imagine how much a government centered in Stockholm or Geneva controlling the whole world. You imagine how much that's going to listen to you.
Hey, they're just going to
you'll be completely detached. You're just another slave. You're just another number in the cog. Government is best when it's local, when you control your own destiny in your own town, your own city, your own county, your own state, your own country. That is what the ideal world is, a world of nation states where people control their own lives, not some globalist dream where everybody's life is directed from one central point. You imagine living in Argentina and all your decisions are made from Switzerland, or living in California and all your decisions are made from a faraway country in Europe or Asia. That is their dream. That's their ideal. That's the communist way.
Sounds like 1776 all over again.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing.
There are people talking right now about this situation with the election and the silent coup that is Obama, that is Hillary Clinton, that will be the communist takeover of America. The silent coup, because there's not a shot fired, but the counter coup to that would be Donald Trump. Do you have anything to say about him?
Well, that's the alternative we've got right now. Look, and I was a big Ted Cruz supporter, I have to say. I think he was the. He was a great man who really understood the American Constitution and stood against this globalism thing. Right now, we've got a choice. We've got a choice between Donald Trump, who's a patriot and loves his country and is surrounded by a lot of good people. He shoots his mouth off a bit. I'll admit that. We all understand that, and we tear our hair out sometimes.
Right.
And it's lucky, but Hillary Clinton is an existential threat to America. Donald Trump can lead something that changes this country back to what it should be, and even better, he can start the process. So you either vote for Hillary Clinton and vote to destroy America as an individual country, or you vote for Donald Trump and at least buy the country some time and elect somebody who wants to put America first.
Yeah,
now, if you live in America, you should be looking at America first. If you're in Canada, you should be looking at Canada first. If you're in France, you should be looking at France first. We should all look to our own country's interest. And Donald Trump wants to put America first. Hillary Clinton wants to put herself and the globalist agenda first.
Yeah, and I personally was I liked Ted Cruz a lot. He was my strong second choice early on. I liked Donald Trump a little bit better. Just it was a personality thing. And I would like to say, in case there's any never Trumpers listening or any people that are kind of still bent out of shape about not having Cruz, I mean, to me, the difference between them is simply more of a knowledge base. Cruz, he knows the Constitution backwards and forwards. And even though I wouldn't expect Trump to know it backwards and forwards right now. I do believe that his heart's in the right place, and I think that if he has to refer to the Constitution, he would do that, and I think he would get it right. I don't think that he would. If he were to find out that an idea that he has is unconstitutional, I think he would immediately say, "Well, we're not going to do that then." And I think,
I think you're right. And he has named a whole lot of very constitutional judges he wants to put into the Supreme Court. But I just want to say one final thing because I'll need to go fairly soon. Sorry. See, there's a lot of in the Never Trump camp. They think they're going to, and I urge everybody who cares about this country, vote for Donald Trump next week. Absolutely. It's going to give the country a chance. If Hillary Clinton wins, we are in huge trouble. You know, she is a criminal. She is a communist. She is a Muslim Brotherhood sympathizer. She's everything bad that we do not need. She'll make Obama look like an angel. But just think about this. For those Never Trumpers who say, look, we'll come back in 4 years, 8 years, we'll rebuild the conservative movement, I want them to do a little bit of math, right? Now, Mitt Romney, the Republican, lost the last election by 2.5 million votes. There are between 12 and 50 million illegal aliens in this country right now. Hillary Clinton has promised to amnesty them and give them citizenship and voting rights. She's promised to start that process within 100 days of taking office. When she has succeeded, if she does, that they will vote 75 to 80% Democrat. That is the position. That will give the Democrats between 10 and 40 million more votes. There will never be another Republican president. You will have a one-party state from that point, controlled completely by the Democrats forever. The Democrats are controlled by the unions, and the unions are controlled by the communists.
Right. Brian,
giving Hillary Clinton, it's a one-party state. And if anybody out there doesn't like Donald Trump, you just think about how you're going to like a one-party state ruled forever by Hillary Clinton and her people.
We will have lost.
That's what you're looking at.
We will have lost all liberty.
Exactly what you're looking at.
Right. We will have lost all freedom and liberty. Brian, you have any thoughts?
Other than what you just said, Ann Coulter 2 days ago on Sean Hannity's show, she made a similar assertion that if Donald Trump does not win, we will never see a Republican presidential candidate win the presidency ever. It will be done.
Yeah.
So you're listening to Trevor. Oh, go ahead. You have any final? Is that your final thought?
Well,
Trevor?
I just want to say, and even if you're a Democrat or a Greens Party supporter, that should scare you,
right?
Because a one-party state, I wouldn't want anybody to have a one-party state in this country,
right?
Even if I love them, I wouldn't want Ted Cruz to be a one-party ruler in this country.
Yeah, it's
or Donald Trump, because it is
dangerous.
A recipe for tyranny. And we cannot allow that to happen.
Exactly. So you listen to Trevor Loundon. We very, very appreciative of you being on here. He is the author of The Enemies Within and also the creator of, is it a documentary?
It's a documentary. It's a 90-minute documentary, very high quality, detailing the traitors who exist in your government, and we name them and call them out and expose their backgrounds and show how they plan to set up a one-party state in this country after the next election.
Do you have a Twitter account?
Yeah, New Zealand blog. I don't handle the Twitter side of it. That's a bit newfangled for me.
Okay, and also you can go to enemieswithinmovie.com to find out where it can be shown. Please go and patronize that movie. I know we will find out where it's being played around here and go find that. Thank you very much for being on. I hope you come on again sometime soon.
Yeah, look, it's a real pleasure, guys. And by all means, invite me back after the election, and we'll either celebrate or commiserate, shall we?
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. We absolutely will.
Oh, you got Tyler Durden on the line? Folks, I hope you really enjoyed that. I went to Amazon, and I've got a Prime account on Amazon. And if you have a Prime account on Amazon, go to Amazon and type in his name, Trevor Loudon, Loudon. But as soon as you type in Trevor, L-O-U, it'll come up. His book will come up, and the documentary will come up. And if you've got a Prime account, you can watch it for free. So I watched it. I watched it for free on Amazon, and I'm gonna be honest with you. You better have a box of tissues,
Yeah, you were
'Cause
getting emotional about it, weren't
Oh
you?
my Lord. And don't watch this movie until after the election, because it'll give you a heads up on
if
how
Hillary,
much-
I know she's not going to, but just in a hypothetical dream world, nightmare world, if Hillary were to win, watching that might really scare you.
Oh, yeah, you're going to have to watch it if she wins. You're going to have to watch the movie because that'll be our prep for the incoming war.
You got to know what their motives are and all that kind of stuff. And it's crazy. But anyway, yeah, that's just great. I think that, one of the things that I was thinking of before interviewing Trevor was the book by Mark Levin, which is Ameritopia. And in that book, I really got an education on the kind of communism that Trevor talks about. And that's another really good read beyond the enemies within, because it talks about communism all the way back to before Christ. We're talking Plato's Republic and all that kind of stuff. In fact, Mark Levin calls Plato's Republic, or he says that in Plato's Republic, you can see the germs of Marxism in it. So this is nothing new. This is something that's thousands of years old, and it's something that as a citizen of the world, you should know about the threat of statism.
Well,
and
not a
communism.
citizen of the world. It's just a citizen.
Or a human being on Earth.
Yes, a human being. Because citizens of the world unite would
Well, you'd have to
be a call to power.
Right. That would be a language that is not helpful here. So, no, but you want to be able to know what everybody's got info. We live in a world where people, and large numbers of people, and percentage-wise, they represent a small number of people, but worldwide, we're talking about a large number of people who they dedicate their life to enslaving massive numbers of people and using them to enrich themselves.
Because they believe that that's the only way to gain wealth and enrichment.
Right, is to use other people and abuse them. And that is basically what communism is the institutional version of that. It's like, hey, how can we turn this into a science? And Karl Marx, to his credit, basically turned it into a religion. The idea of getting massive numbers of people to support your power over others is communism. I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell, right? Anyway, so we have an election coming up.
We do?
Oh, yeah. Some sort of going out there and voting for something.
Right.
And basically, what do we have? WikiLeaks is worried about, exposed some voter fraud situations.
Yeah, WikiLeaks is definitely Project Veritas.
Well, Project Veritas did, but WikiLeaks was also involved in this too. And soon, in the next several minutes, we may be talking to Jim Condit Jr. if we can get the technology up and running. This is not a recorded interview. This will just be a live discussion with the man.
And my only caveat is, and I'm prefacing this right now.
Yeah, we're apologizing in advance, right?
Not for Jim. He is currently on a PC.
Oh, and we're on a Mac.
And it is
We're
Skype.
Skype it. We'll try to Skype it.
Depending on how good of a PC he has, and he's not sure on the updates.
It's mainly about internet connection and all that kind of stuff. But you're right.
He just asked me. He said he didn't know where it was to update.
So we'll just crossing our fingers.
Rolling the ball.
Or rolling the dice in this case. Yes. So, are you worried about voter fraud?
I have been for a while.
I'll tell you my opinion. My opinion is, and I'm not just throwing this out there, not pie in the sky. I'm talking. I've been watching elections for president very closely ever since 2000. All right. I mean, that was one where I was on a daily riveted, watching things from about the summer through all of the debates.
Right.
And then there was the controversy where the judge had to decide which ballots were to be counted and which ones weren't to be counted, hanging chads and all that stuff in Florida. And that was for weeks and weeks, we didn't know who was going to be our next president. And so from that point on, I've been riveted to presidential politics. And so I'm telling you right now, And also, I've been also volunteering to help Trump get elected through a ground game, volunteer-wise, knocking on doors, delivering yard signs, all this kind of stuff, full disclosure. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm telling you this from my vast expertise and experience and wisdom and knowledge and everything that I have at my disposal without any bias whatsoever. I can tell you that if Trump doesn't win in a landslide, it can only be attributed to voter fraud because there's no indications whatsoever other than the polls, which we now know through WikiLeaks are fake.
Right.
WikiLeaks exposed that the sampling for the polls was going to be skewed on purpose to try to manipulate the public into thinking that Hillary is either leading or has a chance to win or is close when she's not.
Right. Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was going to say there's an ABC poll that came out with 3 different things that they polled on, Hillary versus Trump. Trump was either tied with her, really close to her, or up a few. You go all the way down to the bottom of the page, and they polled 7 plus 7, Democrats plus
Right.
7 on those polls, which means Trump is up.
Well, you would think that they're assuming that the actual real election is going to come down to them being right. And to Bill Mitchell's credit, he's the first one that I heard of that's been saying, hey, look at the sample. It's not right. And mainstream media is starting very slowly to actually report that Bill Mitchell's pointing out that the samples are wrong, mainly because the public is repeating him. The public is coming out and saying, hey, have you guys listened to Bill Mitchell? The polls are wrong. And then people listen to him, and he explains why. And, I mean, I have no choice, based on my experience and expertise, to say, gosh, it seems right. Because they're doing voter models based on 2012 and 2008, which are not going to be the same with a Hillary Clinton running as opposed to a Barack Obama.
No, and they're saying the early voting support was down for Democrats. It was up for Republicans.
They're actually reporting that it's up for Democrats, and now I'm like, okay, somebody's flat out lying.
Right.
And who has the history of lying? Is it the Republicans or the Democrats?
And the news. That's why we do this show for
No. The news, what you're referring to, that's paid propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. They are. It used to be that the news was leaning Democrat. Their bias to the Democrats. That is gone. You can throw that out the window. Now they are a part of the Democrat Party. They're no longer biased towards them. They are the Democrat Party. I think it was Newt Gingrich that said that.
Okay. And so now we're working with Jim Condit Jr., who was a 2014 Constitutional Party candidate.
Here in Cincinnati, right?
He sought election in the U.S. House of Representatives, the 8th Congressional District, against Boner. It was him, Boner, and
well, that's a shame he didn't
else.
beat him.
Right. So as we try and make this work out, we'll see if we can get a hold of Jim, because apparently he's got a lot of information when it comes to voter fraud and voter you with us, Jim?
Hello.
How are you,
Yes.
Jim? This is Brian Smith and Kerry Smith. You're live on Smith Radio, and we're talking about voter fraud.
Okay.
You ran in 2014 as a Constitutional Party candidate against Boehner?
Yes.
Okay. And
What's a shame you didn't beat him, because I don't think anybody likes him.
In 2010, I also ran against him on the Constitution Party, and the computer showed me coming in second, beating the Democrat with 36,000 votes. But a half hour after they shut down they said the final count was in, all precincts are counted. At about 1 a.m. in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, they took 33,000 votes out of my column and put them in the Democratic column. So
How would they do that?
that sounds about right.
So that just happened to me. It's kind of unfortunate because people say, "Well, you're a sore loser." No, but I'm not. But on the other hand, we can't have elections where that type of chicanery goes on, and that's not even the worst kind. The worst kind is when something's done inside the computer to where nobody knows what went on. So you might have heard that in about 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, in Chambers County, Texas, and in Maryland, in both places, numerous citizens reported pushing the screen or their voting computer for Trump, and then it's switching the vote to Hillary. Now, that's a tremendous misprogramming problem, in my opinion, on the vendor, which in that case was Election Systems and Services, ES&S, one of the three big vendors. Because really what should happen is you push, let's say that they're switching the vote to Hillary. You push Trump, you see Trump, but silently inside the computer, the vote, your vote is switched to Hillary. That's the problem with computer voting. That's why computer voting has been any kind of a secret count has been declared illegal. Yep. Any computer count or other secret count of the vote has been declared illegal by the United States Supreme Court 3 different times in 3 different cases, but that's being ignored.
Now, somebody was saying that that George Soros has money ties, something to the companies that have these computer voting systems, and that if you go to your poll and it is a computer, demand a paper ballot.
Yeah. Okay. 2 things. One, that is a guy named Ethan Pepper, a young guy, doesn't look like he's more than 25 years old, but he's a computer whiz. He was on Sean Hannity's radio show from 5:45 till 6 on October 18th, the radio show. And I never thought I would be giving credit to Sean Hannity for breaking this issue nationwide, nor that anybody would do it. But Pepper said in that 15 minutes, among other things, he said, 1, any computer can be hacked. And of course, the entire younger generation knows that, even if a lot of the older generation doesn't. Secondly, if you're going to hack into a voting computer, you may as well steal 1 vote as well as steal. You may as well steal 1 million votes if you're going to steal 1 vote. In other words, it's as easy to steal 50 or 500 or 5,000 votes as it is to steal 1 vote. And thirdly, he spotted on the question of who owns the computer programs, and he mentioned that George Soros was connected to a company named Smartomatic that has machines in 16 states. Now, Soros is not directly on that board, as I understand it, but he's on other boards with the guys that own that company, so he's connected to them. But Soros isn't even the main problem. Then that man went viral because everybody knows all the skullduggery that George Soros is into. But the 3 big companies that count 96% of the American vote, namely ES&S, Hart, and Dominion, they're all as bad as Soros. In other words, they all demand to count the votes in secret. They all demand that the secretaries of state and the boards of election in the 3,000 counties sign a contract with them that they will not inspect the computer software and they will not sue over the computer software. And believe it or not, all 50 secretaries of state and all like 3,100 of the 3,141 counties election officials signed that contract. So they signed the contract not to look at the computer software that's telling the computers what to do. And we have Ohio Secretary of State John Husted on September 17th, 2012 at a Tea Party meeting in Cincinnati, Ohio, confirming that they signed these contracts. So we'll get back to the 3 companies in a minute, but asking for a paper ballot also does no good at all. A very clever, in my opinion, a very clever cabal or a clever coalition has taken voting 100% out of the hands of the American people for national elections. In fact, in the whole country, there's only 5 counties that still count vote rights. They're all in New Hampshire, and they count the votes right. They can't count paper ballots before the paper ballots leave the public site, right there in the precinct. That's the way it should be done, and easily could be done on camera and streamed over the internet and with everybody watching who wanted to stand around. We could, as Ben Carson said the other day, we put a man on the moon. We got a lot of technological inventions like cell phones that are almost like magic. We can surely count votes right if we wanted to. In other words,
apparently they don't want to. It's obvious.
They don't want to. The whole system, as it stands now, is designed by crooks and for crooks. So,
wow.
Right. Well, look what they did to Bernie. Look what they did to Bernie Sanders. I mean, right now this electronic election fraud. We don't say voter fraud because while there is
instances of people being bussed around and voting 3, 4, 5 times and people trying to vote twice. That's voter fraud, and that is a problem. It is a problem in many ways. For instance, dead people voting, for instance, and that's really an election system problem. And also, a lot of illegal immigrants have been given driver's license, and then told that you could vote because a lot of states only check for driver's license.
Yeah.
So in this case, probably the illegal immigrants are being informed improperly. But those are voter fraud. That happens. It's big and it's got to be looked at. But it's nothing compared to a computerized election fraud. And here we're not worried about the voter or the proverbial Mexican guy who's an illegal immigrant running around and voting twice. We're not worried about that in election fraud. We're worried about the vendors. The vendors are under the ones that can rig the election. They own the software. They're all very mysterious. They're all very mean. They won't talk to reporters. They may well be the same company behind the scenes. But let me explain. If you don't mind, I'll just take a minute, if you don't mind, to go from where voting was in the 60s and before and where it came to by 1988 and still is today, so people can get in their mind what's going on here. It used to be, especially in near the founding of the country, you had paper ballots, right?
Right.
And the paper ballots were dumped out at closing time in front of everybody, and pre-selected citizens by agreement counted the votes, and everybody could stand around and watch. So you had paper ballots counted in the precinct before they left the public site. Because if in the old days, if the ballots were taken out of the public site, even for a minute, the voting had to be done over. Because everybody knew that the crooks always want to take the ballots out of public sight so the people can't see what's happening.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And again, it would not be that difficult to do. It would not take that long. In the middle of the Bush-Gore debacle of 35-day, dragging it out to see who won in the year 2000, on November 28th, about halfway through the 35 days of the Bush-Gore ballot struggle or election struggle, Canada had an election. They counted 13 million votes in 4 hours. Okay, and they had maybe 8 people counting at each precinct. It was done by 11 or 11:30 at night, and it was all paper ballots counted in the open. So it can be done. We had about 100 million votes that year, so it would have taken about 6 times as many people. But it's just like bringing in a new crew, because when you go to vote, you see usually elderly people there helping you vote. There's usually 6 to 10 of them at every precinct. So we got the people to do it even, and we should pay the people well to do it, by the way. And right now we're paying billions to these 3 companies.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you talk about we need volunteers and people that don't get paid. Meanwhile, we're spending billions of dollars on the machines that are doing all these vote countings without them letting us know how it's even been done. But that makes total sense. And I was told by somebody that precincts, at least here in Hamilton County, Ohio, generally have anywhere from 500 to 1,500 people that would come and vote to that precinct. So you're talking an average of about 1,000 people per precinct. That doesn't sound impossible to actually tally up by hand before.
I'll stand correction on this, but I believe in Hamilton County there's about 200 voters per precinct on primaries and about 500 at the November election. So it's even less than that. But whatever it is, you need about 2 people for each 50 ballots, and we think it would be 8 people average per precinct. Of course, in New York and L.A. you'd need more. I mean, there's so many things before we get into how it's been crooked. There's so many things that could be done. For instance, in Europe, in many countries, they take away, they siphon out for the big election. The president in our country would be the president, the vice president, the senator, the congressman, the governor, the state rep, and the state senator, and only vote on those 6. And then 2 weeks later, you come back and vote on all the issues and everything. And that way, for the most important offices, they could really count them quick, because you'd only have 6 races on each ballot. So, and it could, again, we could spend a fraction of what we spend over a few months in various foreign aid programs and build about 60,000 voting buildings that would be designed for voting, camera on the ceilings that would film the ballots as they're laying them on the table to count them, stream them over the internet, have a film you could go back and look at later. Everybody in the Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Constitution, Independent could stand around and watch the people counting. The people would be pre-selected and paid, and I'd say pay them $100 a night so people want the job, and you might randomly select them out of a hat in each precinct 2 weeks before the election with 4 backups in case somebody got sick. And Jim Collier, who wrote Vote Scam: The Stealing of America in 1992, he passed away now. Jim said, make one of every precinct be a high school student, a high school senior, a college student, so that the young people could learn how votes should be counted.
Right.
Some people, if it might be listening, well, gee, I mean, you guys, what are you, troglodytes? You're against computers? No, I love computers. I'm sure you do too. But for some things, they're not good. Adam Osborne, who wrote the book Running Wild in 1979, he was one of the guys that built the first PC that even was before anybody had a PC in their house, a personal computer. And in his book Running Wild, he described a lot of the challenges that would come in the future in computers. And he said computers are great, but he said one thing computers should never be used for is vote counting.
Oh, boy.
Because vote counting, you cannot see what's happening inside a computer, and that's the essence of a problem, is to have a secret vote count. Now, let me I don't mean to sound like I'm a senator on this floor of the Senate filibustering, but just to get your listeners orientated here of what should be done. The paper ballots counted before they leave the precinct. Paper ballots mean nothing if they're taken out of sight,
right?
Especially for weeks, because then they have a chance to be switched. So that's why I say that's a goodwill suggestion that people say ask for a paper ballot. But even like in Hamilton County, where we live, Cincinnati, all of the ballots are counted through the computers, taken out of the public site for 21 days at least, counted through the computers. So you're still dependent on that computer program. Now, what's happened by 1973 was the first year they started to insinuate computers into elections in a big way. And by 1988, okay, they had the what we call the election night gatekeepers, which I'll identify. It's not secret information. They had managed to install computers in the entire United States of America, with the exception of most of New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire now has 5 counties doing it right, and 5 counties counting it by computer. And there may be a few other very small places in the United States that count by hand. I'm told this is true, but we've never been able to verify it, okay? So what happened by then is you had 4 companies, basically. I'm going to shorthand this a little because these companies sell each other to each other occasionally.
Oh, boy.
But you had 4 companies who were counting the vote, and it was at that time, well, at least by time it got to be 2004. From 1980 to 2004, there were 4 companies, but they sold, like they would sell the company to other companies, but it still remained the same operation, basically, were ES&S, Election System and Software. They're out of Omaha, Nebraska, and they're the biggest. They count, that one company processes on their secret computer programs 60% of the American vote. 60% of the American vote, one company. Then there's Hart Civic, which we use in Cincinnati, Ohio, Hamilton County. There is and then there's ES&S is used by Butler County, up where John Boehner ran his main county when he, in the district he was congressman for. Mm-hmm. Then you got you had Sequoia and Diebold. And in 2004, this is all on electionnightgatekeepers.com. If you read the article or look at the videos, or especially read the article, in an article in The Nation magazine in August of 2004, a veteran reporter, a very venerable reporter named Ronnie Duggar, wrote an article called How They Could Steal the Election This Time. And in there, in the first few paragraphs, we got the article linked. You can just read the first few paragraphs or read the whole article. He said that 96% of the United States vote was processed by these 4 companies: ES&S, Diebold, Hart, and Sequoia. Now, or excuse me, what did I say? ES&S, Hart, Sequoia, and Diebold. Those were the 4.
Right.
Now, in 2013, a company named Dominion bought Diebold and Sequoia, so now there's only 3. But he said that those 4 companies counted 96% of the United States vote. So the other week, last Saturday, in fact, I texted Bev Harris. Bev Harris is probably the greatest living or maybe ever vote fraud investigator, and I'll talk about her in a minute, but she was in the HBO documentary in 2006 called Hacking Democracy, and I texted her. I said, Bev, we're about to go on the air with a commercial that these three companies now, because Dominion bought Diebold and Sequoia, that ES&S, Hart, and Dominion are counting 96% of the American vote. Is this still true? I don't want to exaggerate. And she texted back 15 minutes later and said it's now 99%.
I definitely believe that more than 90. I was like 97%. You mean there's 3% of votes out there that aren't using these machines?
Right,
yeah,
right.
I totally believe
so
that.
she said it's 99%. And in her new video, which is called Fraction Magic, that's Fraction Magic. It's on YouTube. It's also on her website, blackboxvoting.org. She provides a color-coded map. And there are looks like 50 to 100 counties that are counted by other companies, smaller companies. They're in black on the map. But these are very small counties. So still 99% of the vote is these three companies. Now, so again,
I was going to ask you this with the three different companies that are doing all the. If the problem is that there's electronic voting, a computer doing the counting, does it matter whether it's three companies or 1,000 companies? If the problem is that it's computers doing it,
yeah, and they're doing it on secret programs. It doesn't essentially matter, but obviously with three companies, it's easier to own and fix from behind the scenes. Three companies than 1,000. However, here's where you get into the election night gatekeepers are not only these three companies, who, by the way, did not take an axe and a gun and come in and say, we're taking over your election system. They were hired legally by the 3,000 counties. They hire them, they sign them on, and then sign a contract not to look at their software. And this can only mean that they're encouraged to do so by the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, because those two major parties run all 3,141 counties and all 50 states, obviously.
Real quick, what was the lady's name that you had mentioned did the HBO special?
Yeah, that's Bev Harris, and that HBO's documentary is called Hacking Democracy. Okay.
Okay.
Her website is Black Box Voting, where she has her book, Black Box Voting, free online, okay? And she also did this recent thing that came out the other day, which was the Fraction Magic, okay? Now, so that's the problem. By 1988, we have this situation where these three companies are counting all the votes on secret software. Now, let me read you, if you don't mind here, a passage from the 1992 book by Jim and Ken Collier. Okay? Because it's usually reading something on the air is boring, but this really I don't think is. I've done it before, and they really nail it in these few paragraphs here.
Okay.
This is 1988. They're writing right after the Bush-Dukakis election. And it says that the writing that I did about it here says, the chapter begins by quoting the first words spoken by President-elect George Bush in his November 8th, 1988 victory speech in Houston, Texas. Bush said, quote, "We can now speak the most majestic words that democracy can offer. The people have spoken." So then I said the Collier's comment in the following brilliantly written passage, and here's what they said. It was not the people of the United States who did the speaking on that election day, although most of them believed it was and still believe it. In fact, the people did not speak at all. The voices most of us really heard that day were the voices of computers, strong, loud, authoritative, unquestioned in their electronic finality. The computers that spoke in November 1988 held in their inner workings small boxes that contained secret codes that only the sellers of the computers could read. The programs or source codes were regarded as trade secrets, quote unquote. The sellers of the vote counting software zealously guarded their programs from the public, from election officials, from everyone, on the dubious grounds that competitors could steal their ideas if the source codes were open to inspection. You may ask, what ideas does it require to count something as simple as ballots? Can the ideas be much more complex than, let's say, a supermarket computerized cash register or an automatic bank teller machine? the computer voting machines do not have to do anything complicated at all. They simply must be able to register votes for the correct candidate or party or proposal, tabulate them, count them up, and deliver the arithmetically correct additions. People with no formal training, even children, used to do it all the time. So why can't the public know what those secret source codes instruct the computers to do? It only makes common sense that every gear, every mechanism, every nook and cranny of every part of the voting process ought to be in the sunlight, wide open to public view. How else can the public be reasonably assured that they are participating in an unrigged election where their vote actually means something? Yet one of the most mysterious, low-profile, covert, shadowy, questionable mechanisms of American democracy is the American vote count. Computers and voting machines are effectively immune from checking and rechecking. If they are fixed, you cannot know it, and you cannot be sure at all of an honest tally. And then I said, if you understand the above quoted paragraphs, you understand the problem.
You know, just real quick, and I was thinking about this. I'm not a very, I know about programming a little bit.
Oh, I know a lot about it.
But
yeah.
I could literally write in DOS, might take me a little bit of time, but I could write in DOS a program that will tally.
I did basic. I did basic programming, which is really archaic and old. And you're just adding dots or marks or maybe the open chads or whatever, depending on, like, if you have the old IBM machines with the cards,
the card readers.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about really simple programs. That is mind blowing that they have to make this a secret thing.
Well, this is the thing, and the great investigative reporter Christopher Byrne went to Omaha, Nebraska about 10 years ago to election systems and software, and they let him sit in the office for about an hour and a half, and then came out and said, "Nobody's going to talk to you. Leave." These are mean companies. They remind me of companies that need to be investigated. I believe that they. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I totally agree with you. It needs to be, anybody who wants to make it that part of the counting secret must have something to hide.
Now, how does this play out in what's going on right now?
A good question, because I was just going to go into this situation because I know everybody's interested in what's going to happen Tuesday. Let me, before we do that, though, just because I assume you guys archive your programs.
Oh, absolutely.
So for people that want to, I want to give just one other thing here on this aspect of secrecy that's more recent to show that this is not just an isolated author, Jim and Ken Collier, who are now both passed away. This is Dr. David Dill from Stanford University, and he Stanford University. And here's what he said in that he's quoted by Ronnie Duggar in that 2004 article in The Nation magazine, which actually appeared on August 16th, 2004, how they could steal the election this time. And here's what he said. Why am I, he's talking himself as a computer expert at Stanford, why am I always being asked to prove these systems aren't secure? The burden of proof ought to be on the vendor. You ask about the hardware, secret. The software, secret. What's the cryptography? Can't tell you because that'll compromise the secrecy of the machines. The then he says federal testing procedures, secret. Results of the test, secret. Basically, we're required to have blind faith. That's David Dill, Dr. David Dill of Stanford University. Robert Strunk, who ran Xavier University's computers in 1985, was called in as an expert witness in a case that we filed, and he concluded in his expert opinion and expert testimony to the court of Judge Richard Niehaus here in Hamilton County that when it comes to the election results, when it comes to computerized election results at that time, we are asked to exercise blind faith. In other words, believe in them with blind faith. And Judge Richard Niehaus wrote in his decision that should have been nationwide headlines, but was suppressed and overturned 2 years later by a crooked appeals court. He said there are no safeguards to prevent the computers from being programmed to distort the election results.
Now, let me play devil's advocate real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, as a critic, well, wait a minute here. We have all these machines all over the entire country tallying up these votes. Couldn't we have a team of auditors do random tests of these where we actually physically count ballots and then compare it against what the machine gave? And if we did it at a certain percentage of polling precincts, that could conclude that they're probably all accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could do that, and I'd like to see that done. If we
You mean that's not being done?
Absolutely not. Now, Ian, let me qualify this. In California and in Arizona, they have a mandated 1% test. Okay. But when you look at it, it's just not enough, and it's not enough, and it's done in a way that is enough to really check the whole thing. The other problem with that is that in most of these cases, this early voting is made, again, by crooks for crooks. The ballots are disappearing in early voting and absentee ballots for weeks at a time. So there's as President Kennedy said, there's no more temptation in politics. You don't know what's happening to those ballots. There have been several election officials. A famous case was in near 2000, a little after that, in Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada, of all places. A man was convicted, an election official, when he was caught by somebody who was honest, switching ballots in an election room leading up to the election. So. Yeah, but even a 1% count, since the whole future of the city, the state, the county, the nation, and the world depends on these elections in so many ways, why not just do it right and count all of them? But there's a lady in Chicago advocating for a 25% of the ballots be hand counted. That would be probably good based on statistics, but we say why not just go all the way and do the whole thing? The questions that I would expect a logical person to ask, though, the first one would be, well, yeah, but aren't the election officials, why aren't the Democrats watching the Republicans and all that stuff? The answer, as I said, is no. They sign contracts in all these counties. In fact, they won't even these companies won't even deal with them unless they sign a contract that they won't look at the source code of the software, A, and B, that they won't sue about anything related.
And what's the
the
penalty for getting caught? What's the penalty?
I don't know if there is one. I mean, who's going to catch them if nobody's looking at it? Now,
right. Does a tree that falls in the forest doesn't make a sound if nobody's there? But the thing that I've seen, the penalties for cheating, for voter fraud, are sometimes absolutely minuscule. Slap on the hand and walk away.
Right, and they should be serious penalties, because this. Now, the other thing is that the next thing I would expect a logical person to ask is, yeah, but wait a minute. Can't we double check with the paper ballots and just make sure that the paper ballots come out the same as the computers?
Okay, like an audit, yeah.
The question, and then here's the problem with that. One is I still don't believe this. I always, when I start radio shows, I usually say I cannot blame the audience if they think I'm making everything up that I'm about to say, because it sounds like you're making everything up just to make an interesting movie or something. But check it out; you'll find out that it's true. Unfortunately, but. The next thing is, well, how about the paper ballots? Okay, now this is why we say the paper ballots got to be counted before they leave the public site, right there at the precinct at 7 o'clock. Because the ballots right now, let's say in Hamilton County, you vote, you put it you kind of feed it into like an ATM machine that's as strong as a safe. I'm sure you guys have done that if you're in Hamilton County, and then you can't get at the ballots again. In fact, if anybody goes downtown and tries to get at the ballots, they will be arrested, and they'll tell you pretty quickly that my brother-in-law was Pat Buchanan's campaign manager in this county in 1996, and he, with my brother, who's a lawyer, went down there, said, can we go in and see how they're processing the ballots? The head of the Board of Elections then was Bruce Taylor. He was an official there. I think he was the head, though. And he said, no, you can't come in. It's for the ballot security that we don't let anybody come in this room. The ballot security is for those who are in the room, the company. But the problem with counting the paper ballots is when you got 21 days, that's plenty of time to switch the ballots.
Right.
And if you watch the movie Hacking Democracy, the HBO documentary, which actually is good except in one part, it's excellent. It's excellent except for one part, the thing they imply. Then you'll near the end in Cleveland. Excuse me, near the end in Cleveland. It's up in Cleveland. It's near the end of the movie, and the people for Bev Harris were acting like the election integrity investigators. Oh, this is great. This is great. Then they bring out the ballots to be recounted from the back room. This is like a month after the election, and then they turn into reporters and say, who determined what ballots were going to be brought out? And you can see that the election workers are absolutely panicked because they have no idea. They may just have been told what to bring out, but they don't know. Nobody knows who is picking what ballots to be brought out. But even if the candidate that's challenging gets to pick the ballots, the problem with that is that they've been sitting back there for 21 days. So I know in the city council recounts in the 70s, early 80s, late 79, when we were investigating this for the first time, there was like you could pick 3% of the precincts to be recounted. So if there was 1,000 precincts, you could pick 30, and that was the case here in Hamilton County. And you pick 30, but then they knew 2 weeks in advance what 30 precincts were going to be recounted. Isn't that plenty of time to switch the ballots? Yeah. Now, the other problem here is, because I don't believe they would or could depend on making 3,000 local election officials crooked. In the contract is that the company that they've hired is to be brought in to help them, quote, prepare the ballots. Okay. So I'd like to know more about what happens here myself. But the problem is, no, the ballots have disappeared for a month usually, or 21 days. And just by simple chain of evidence, if I'm Jim Rockford from the Rockford Files or Columbo or Sherlock Holmes,
you're dating yourself.
Inspector Gadget,
Inspector,
I guess.
Yeah. Yes, Inspector Clouseau. You'd say, sir, the ballots, the chain of evidence has been broken. We don't know who got at those ballots. So that's the problem, and that's why it's got to be. Now let's get to what's going on now, because I've been in this thing since 1979. It makes me look kind of insane since I was 26 years old.
Well, let me ask you: have you seen the Project Veritas and the video? Okay. That to me is
that's a different way of voter fraud.
But that's where's the expose? This should be everywhere, should it not?
Absolutely, and that's why on electionnightgatekeepers.com we identify 12 election night gatekeepers. 3 are the three companies. But primary, in my mind, and those that I work with, is the 5 TV networks: ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and Fox. Now, if you go to electionnightgatekeepers.com, by the way, there's no donate money, there's no donate button, there's no fundraising. This is just a public service website for the public. We have the logo of the Election Night Gatekeepers across the top. So NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, and Fox, they have prevented the public from knowing about these 3 big companies for 20 years. It used to be 4, but now it's 3 companies.
Certainly don't seem like they care too much.
Why aren't these guys household words? I mean, even if somebody doesn't believe there's ever been any crookedness or never been a conspiracy of any kind, still, isn't that an unholy concentration of power that only 3 privately owned companies on their secret privately owned software are processing 99% of the American vote? And the networks never, ever mention these guys, never, ever do any kind of
vetting
of an investigation of any kind. So the 5 TV networks, the 3 companies, Hart, Dominion, it used to be Diebold, and ES&S. So that's 8. Okay, 9 and 10 are the Republican National Committee and Democratic National Committee, who know that this is going on and also are okay with it. They never bring it up, and they must encourage all their local people to hire these companies, and they do. And that's 10. Well, who are the other 2? The 11 is the AP Wire, which is the big wire service, and 12 is a shadowy group named National Election Pool. Now you can look, this is not secret information, you can look it up on their website or on Wikipedia. National Election Pool is the in between the counties and the networks. They collect on election night what comes out of the computers in each county and hand it over to the networks. The networks announce the result to the public. Okay, that's National Election Pool. They also do all the exit polls. All the official exit polls are done by National Election Pool. So who are they owned by? Believe it or not, they're owned by it's a jointly owned corporation by ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, and AP Wire.
And everything that we learned from WikiLeaks is that all these people are in bed with the DNC. It's kind of it's scary.
Probably the RNC too.
Right. So we've talked on this show for years about we're not going to get into tinfoil hat stuff, and we
kind of make fun of it.
We make fun of Alex Jones every once in a while, and some of the kookiness, and old boy in the middle of the night, coast to coast with George Norrie
and all that kind of stuff.
But now we're seeing everything that we thought was a hoax. It's all real.
Yeah, WikiLeaks has exposed all that stuff. It's really scary.
Yeah, well, the good news is we can fix it. We can fix it by just an awareness, and we can get into that if you wish. But I'd like to mention to you, all this stuff I've said is public knowledge. And the suspicious thing is that, Carrie, the suspicious thing is that the networks, once you verify this information, why are the networks hiding this from the people? At least it should be something the public has kind of been able to think about. But most people have never thought about it. They think the Democrats are watching the Republicans are watching the Democrats. In fact,
that's what I always thought.
It's been taken out of the hands of the local people because, I repeat, you cannot make 3,000 sets of local people crooked. Now, let's go into what's happening right now, okay? And before we go from National Election Poll, which used to be called Voter News Service up till 2004, and they're heavily covered. Voter News Service is heavily covered in the Collier book, Vote Scam, The Stealing of America, and on our website, electionnightgatekeepers.com. Before we go from that, would you believe that Friday night, we're talking 2 nights ago, I don't know if our information is kind of getting everywhere thanks to the internet and Bev Harris's and the other vote fraud investigators, but O'Reilly must be getting hammered on this point of the exit polls because he asked Brett Baer, who's another big anchor on Fox.
Yeah.
He had him on the show as a guest, and he said, and part of the interview he said, what about the exit polls? How are they done? And Brett says, well, they're done in the field, and then they're sent to a sequestered building. So, I mean, I don't know what value the sequestered building is. But and he did not say they're all done by the same company, but he did say, they're done and they're sent there. Okay. So then O'Reilly asked this question, and I hope somebody put this on YouTube because I got to get this.
We're going to find it.
Huh?
We're going to find it, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And so he said to Brett, do all the networks get the same information on the exit polls? And Brett Baer said, yes, but we do our own analysis once we get the information. So in other words, O'Reilly can now say he's not covering it up. And I'm not saying O'Reilly is in on anything because these guys, the anchors, usually just accept what the back room sends out. But he must have got enough questions about, aren't all the exit polls for all the networks done by the same group? So Brett Baer says, yes, we all get the same exact information. And that is the way it is. And then they claim they do their own analysis, but I don't know how that can be that significant. So it's National Election Poll, but the scandal is it's owned jointly by ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, and AP Wire. That's the scandal. The other scandal is I contend these election night calling the winners and losers has been a hoax since 1988. They know they're all getting the exact same information from the exact same company at the exact same time that they jointly own. Now, let me make a distinction here because some people.
So if they all get the same information,
yep,
they're all making the same call because they got the same stuff.
Yeah.
If they start to call it before the polls are closed, or
usually a lot of times, not always, but within a half hour of the time. Now, let me make a distinction here because we don't want to get like you guys have tried to be very prudent over the years, and we want to still try to be prudent here. I don't believe that Chris Matthews and O'Reilly and Hannity are in on this. They're accepting what comes out from the back room.
Right.
I do accuse the election divisions of these 5 TV networks and these 3 companies of being up to no good. I accuse it. We need investigations. There's where the problem is.
Yes,
okay?
I'll absolutely agree with that. No, absolutely.
So I don't want to. I mean, the minimum is we need investigations. What's going on here? Why have you not? So these guys, Kimberly Guilfoyle and Megan Kelly, they're accepting what is handed out to them. Okay, Bill Hemmer's from Elder High School. I don't know if you know Bill Hemmer on Fox.
I thought he went to Oak Hills.
Yeah,
No, he went to Elder. Okay, now, which is neither here nor there. I'm just saying he's a local boy.
Yeah, West Sider.
Right. He was sitting in, and for people around the country, when we say local boy, we mean Cincinnati, Ohio, because it turns out all 3 of us are from Cincinnati.
Right.
But Bill Hemmer was was on the Bill Cunningham show in December 27th or 28th in the year 2000. Let me think about it. Yeah, it was. They were still going through the. Or no, it was about 16 days after they decided the Bush score. It was a Christmas break. I called in and, hey, you're an elder guy. Great. And then I said, Bill, isn't it true, though, that what you guys get from the back room on the exit polls and all that, because they were talking about the long drawn-out election in 2000, said, isn't it true that you don't really know how they do their calculations of exit polls and polls and all that stuff? And he said, well, they're very good. They're very scientific. And he went on like that. And I could tell he didn't know, but he was trying to say, look, I trust my guys back there, but he shouldn't trust them, okay? Right. He shouldn't trust them. And I'm not accusing Bill Hemmer. You understand that. I'm saying you have a tightly knit group. The whole direction of the world is at stake here. Now, I'm probably talking too long on some of these, but this thing hit. We've been trying for 40 years to get this thing out in the public, or since 1979 for me, Bev Harris 2000. The Colliers were working since 1970, but they passed away. But it only came out into the public. We had open letter to DonaldTrump.com, which is also up too, which now basically has the same information as electionnightgatekeepers.com. But we were working on Trump, and through people that are close to Trump, we hope, to get him to bring this up, because he seemed to be the maverick that would bring it up. I actually caught up face-to-face with Trump in early February in Marshalltown, Iowa. He came down to sign autographs, and I was able, through a bunch of crowd noise and people pushing autographs at him, I was able to talk to him for about 30 seconds or 40 seconds, and I paid $10 to two people to get right near the line. I was behind two farm boys from Iowa, and I told them what I was going to do, and I was right in between them in the second row. And when he came by to sign, I said, Mr. Trump, we're the group that caused the Republican Party of Iowa caucus in 2012 to change the winner from Romney to Santorum. I don't know if you guys remember that, but they had to change their winner in the Iowa caucus of 2012 from Romney to Santorum. That was our group, Watch the Vote, and a local guy named Edward True. There's two CNN videos on that, which I think we have in the video section of nightgatekeepers.com. In the second video, Edward True mentions our group, Watch the Vote. Okay, so he stopped and looked up at me, because he was aware that they had to change the winner.
Right.
And I said, Mr. Trump, now there's a lot of noise going on. I said, here's a one-page paper on how you can protect yourself from election fraud. Can you read it on the plane to the next stop? And he said, I will.
Sweet.
And he took it and he said, I'm going to give it to my man back here who looked like a Secret Service guy, but I guess it was his bodyguard. And then he looked up at me Trump style while he started signing autographs, and he said, how do you think we're doing? I said, great, but you've got to watch the vote so they don't steal it from you.
Right.
Okay?
Wow.
You
did a great service there.
Well, it just was providential. And I said, open letter to DonaldTrump.com. Now I'll just throw this in for human interest. So then he stopped signing his autographs again. He looks up at me and has his palms to heaven with holding the pen, and he starts to say two sentences. And at that moment, they cranked up that song he always plays at the end. You don't always get what you want.
Right.
So right as he starts talking to me, they crank it up, and the choir is going da 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 da, and I couldn't hear what he said.
Oh wow!
Well, I don't know if he said, we think we got a good chance to win, or we've seen your website. I don't know what he said, but there's all these people pushing autographs, and I told him I would just get out of there once I talked to him, and I said I couldn't say, hey, would you repeat that? So I smiled and waved and backed up, but I hope he read it. I think he did. And then there was a guy named Gary Forbes, who still is around, of course, who's TrumpOnline.com. He claimed to be in contact with him, and on August 1st in Columbus, Trump said for the first time, I'm afraid they're going to rig the November election against me.
Right. So that may have planted the seed.
Yeah, it may have. And if he looked at the website, it's got it all there for him to know the danger. So at any rate, Gary Forbes then emailed me and said, what else? He claimed they were instrumental in getting Trump to do that. I hope he's not just BSing me, but he's a good man, and he's been very good. Once he got onto this computer fraud from our website, he put out some tremendous memes. One of them was, we're living in a thinly veiled dictatorship enforced by computer fraud. So he put out some good food for thought.
So Jim, we're running short on time. Is there a place where folks can? I know you've listed a couple of websites real quick, but
I would like you to list right now each of the websites slowly for people. There's like 5 of them.
Let me list them. But do we still have 5 minutes or not?
We got maybe about 2.
Oh, no. Okay, so the bottom line, let me just say the bottom line, this got out. Trump tweeted the electronic fraud, okay, about a week and a half ago, so it's out there. We're now dependent that those who run the computers are going to think it's worse for them to put Hillary in, and half the country won't believe it, than to put Trump in. That's the punchline. The websites are electionnightgatekeepers.com. Okay, electionnightgatekeepers.com. Secondly, Bev Harris's website is blackboxvoting.org. That's blackboxvoting.org. Okay. The third one, which is very similar to Election Night Gatekeepers, is openlettertodonaldtrump.com. That's openlettertodonaldtrump.com. If you look at those three, you probably can get the whole picture. I'll give you one more, votefraud.org, which was our first website, votefraud.org in 1996. If you get on the right-hand column of that, you'll get to dozens and dozens of important articles and sources. If you study for 2 or 3 hours, you won't have to take 40 years like me. You can be up to speed in a few hours.
There you go.
And the solution is going back, kicking these computer companies out in each county, making the decision to go to paper ballots hand counted at the precinct before they leave the public site. That's what we want.
People need to be more suspicious and not so trusting of the computers and stuff like that. And I'm really glad that you came on, and I certainly hope you're absolutely invited whenever you want to come back on, especially with regards to voting fraud. You know, if this turns out to be ugly, and I said this before you came on, Jim, I'm predicting either a Trump win or a vote fraud. And if that comes to be, you might be our go-to guy to explain what the heck happened if Trump doesn't win this, because I'm a ground guy. I'm on the ground. I see it. I know. I mean, there's no support for Hillary. There's no enthusiasm for her.
No.
Everything that we know, other than the fake polls that we know are fake because DNC proved that, shows that Trump is way ahead in a lot of places. And so, I
agree. And that's the thing. Jim Carrey used to say, once they get the computers in, it's still got to be believable. In other words, you don't have Joe Hippie beating Simon Lease or Sheriff Richard K. Jones for sheriff. It's got to be believable. The question, the ruling elite, in my opinion, that owns that software, the question that they're considering right tonight, if we announce Hillary is the winner, will it be believable, or will half or more than half of the country think we have an illegitimate government?
Awesome.
And if number two is the case, they're going to have to go with Trump and try to control him. But I'm for that, because I think we got a chance that Trump is going to do at least some of the things he said. Hillary, we're going down the tubes if she can control it.
Absolutely. So, and you have a radio show. You mentioned something about radio.
No, I'm not competent enough to be a radio host like you guys. I'm only a radio guest.
My guest. Okay, well, we'll have to have you on frequently, and we'll talk more about this. Jim, thank you so much. Our listeners are absolutely. I'm watching the messages as you're talking, and our listeners are absolutely thrilled with you being on.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks so much. And Carrie, what's your? But one name is your name is Carrie.
I'm Carrie, and my cousin's the other co-host. He's Brian Smith.
Okay, Brian and Carrie, I really appreciate you being alert enough to
we're concerned
to have this subject on. And believe me, we can fix it, though. The younger generation, I'm 63. I know the younger generation is on to this. The older generation, older than me, worshipped computers, didn't understand them. But thankfully, that era is over. And now we got a bunch of smart young people that know that the computers can be easily rigged.
Excellent. Thank you so much again, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Wow,
that was a wealth of information.
It was a treat. You guys are going to have to rewind.
You might have to pause it a couple times, because he got into so much detail there, some of which he was referencing, which means you have to go back and check to see what he was talking about as far as websites are concerned. And also he drummed out a lot of names and dates, and even mentioned a Sean Hannity show, and he mentioned the date and the time that was played. So all this stuff that he referenced is just lends to the credibility of what he's saying.
Well, not only that, but we've got a soundbite. We haven't played many soundbites tonight just because we've had so many interviews. This has been a action-packed evening, if you will.
Absolutely.
But I've got Nate Silver, who does a lot of the polls, and a lot of people go to Nate Silver for information on what...
Real quick, the reason he has so much credibility is because he predicted exactly what was going to happen in 2012. It turned out to be right on, and now he's the czar of polling.
So ABC wants to go to him for the polling, and the reason why I'm playing this soundbite is because this soundbite actually, ABC and Snuffleupagus, they slip into it accidentally and expose what we've been talking about a little bit. So check this out.
2008, 2012, nailed the election for Barack Obama. Like everyone else, you missed Donald Trump in the primary. So where does your forecast have the race right now?
So we show about a 3-point lead nationally for Clinton, and she's about a 2-1 favorite. The Electoral College math is actually less solid for Clinton than it was for Obama 4 years ago, where 4 years ago we had Obama ahead in states totaling 320-some electoral votes. Clinton has about 270, so she's one state away from potentially losing the Electoral College. You'd rather be in her shoes than Donald Trump's, but it's not a terribly safe position.
Yeah, you give her about a 65.7 chance to win. Now, this is the question I want to get to, though, because you say she has, according to your polling analysis, about a 3-point lead. That was about where President Obama was the Sunday before the election 4 years ago. Yet, and I want to put this up on the board right now. At that time, you showed that he had an 85.
Okay. Just real quick, Snuffle Up, I guess, is confused.
Explain this to us.
Why Hillary only has a 65% chance, but she's at the same place that Obama was at the same time, and you gave him 85. I just don't get this, Nate. I just don't get this.
0.1% chance of winning. So why the contrast right there?
So Clinton's a lot weaker in the Midwest, where 4 years ago President Obama was leading in Ohio by 4 points. Clinton's probably a couple of points behind there. Iowa, maybe the best poll in the country. The Des Moines Register poll showed her down 7 points in Iowa, a state she'll probably lose. So the demographics of Clinton don't actually work as well when you underperform among white non-college voters. That's a good.
Even though the national polling is about the same.
Even though, so
is he a moron?
In the Electoral College, and her Electoral College polling in the swing states is a little bit weaker than Obama's. So in some sense, it's a deceptively large or small lead for Clinton in some ways, whereas a lead electorally than you'd think. The other thing, too, is that we see lots of polls that show numbers like Clinton 44%, Trump 40%. If you only have 44% of the vote, that means you're vulnerable if most of the undecideds break in a certain way. Whereas 4 years ago, it was like Obama 49, Romney 46.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that.
That is critical to understand right now. Obama 49, Romney 46. So it looked like the independents were already sealed up. We got 44 to 40 in some places. I've seen it 44 and 43 in other places. The independent vote is the monster vote. Well, the monster vote is the people who haven't voted before are voting for the first time. People who have been registered that are voting for the first time but have been registered forever. And these independents, they don't want the establishment, government-controlled, crooked, lying Hillary Clinton. She does not make independents feel good.
I think it'll be 60-40. That'll be the national. Now Electoral College is gonna be a little different because she has certain states sewn up, so she's gonna have a certain amount of Electoral College votes. So that might be a little different. But I mean, the 50,000 people polled independently in all 50 states, 1,000 per state, which I don't think is the greatest way to do it. Turns out 2 different times done by two. This was scientific. It was scientific because it was done by 2 different independent companies independently. They came up with the exact same result. That's science. 67% of the people nationwide are leaning towards or voting for Trump or supporting Trump. 33% for Hillary Clinton. Both times, exact same numbers. Also, I went ground gaming today, door to door, knocking on doors, putting up door hangers in a very urban area that was heavily Obama in Cincinnati.
Right.
Ran into 2 different Hillary canvassers who were also doing the same thing I was doing.
Oh, wow.
Guy was like, you live here in this city, I mean? It's like, yeah, I live in Cheviot. What's up? He was like, yeah, they hired me and sent me down here from Chicago. And this is what he said. He's like, look, I don't want to get any arguments. The guy was really nice. I don't want to get any arguments or anything like that, but I just got to ask you, man, what is it that Trump is going to give you that Hillary Clinton wouldn't give you? Is that the most convoluted question you've ever heard in your life?
Well, that tells you exactly what he's asking.
Where he's coming from.
Yeah, he's like,
What's
hey,
the premise?
I'm already getting stuff now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get more. A guy who works with and closely to the Cincinnati public school system tweeted out to me today, said the teachers in the public school system of Cincinnati were told, if you vote Hillary, you'll get a raise. You vote Trump, you won't.
Unbelievable. So I told the guy, I said, well, what I should have said was, we don't vote for who's going to give us the most. But what I did actually say was, well, you got to understand, as a conservative, what I'm really looking for is for the government to kind of get out of my way.
Right.
And I feel that I have a higher percentage of that actually happening under Trump than I do under Clinton. So it's not so much as to what they're giving me. It's about, us having individual freedom and stuff. That's almost word for word what I told him. And he was just like, he looked really deflated. He was depressed.
Really?
Yeah, he was.
This is good to hear.
First thing out of his mouth. Oh, I'm going to be so happy when this is all over. First words out of his mouth. Guy was flown down all the way from Chicago. By the way, me and my partner that were doing this, volunteers, not a penny. This guy had to be flown down from Chicago, had nobody with him.
He was by himself?
Yes, he was totally. The other woman that I ran into was independent. She looked like, I say she, but it looked more like Pat from Saturday Night Live. Whatever it was. I mean, I thought she was in costume. I am not kidding. She looked ridiculous. She looked ridiculous. She had black rim glasses. I don't even think there was lenses in them. Seriously, it looked like something she got from a costume store. She had the flannel tucked in and buttoned all the way to the top. She had long jeans on with the belt, probably high waters. It looked ridiculous. Like the pants were just like a little bit too small.
You can't handle the truth.
I'm serious. It was ridiculous. So that's who I ran into canvassing in a heavily Democratic area. And by the way, there were a lot of people in that area that gave me the fist bump and thumbs up, people honking at me and saying, yeah!
What about when we went to Indianapolis 500? Obviously, it's Indiana.
That was a long time ago.
But it was huge.
Oh,
the
they
response
loved it.
was huge.
Yep.
Best show you'll spend with anybody, anywhere.
By this time next week, we're going to be celebrating. I know it.
Say a prayer tonight, folks.
Yes. Don't forget to share. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook.
With unfathomable power.
What kind of power?
Unfathomable. It's without fathom.